he's got to come up with one or two, right? Like Jordan Binnington has. Jordan Binnington stopped the breakaway. Jordan Binnington, had a puck go through him and fell on it in the back. He needs a bounce or two, but he also needs to be better, just like the best players on this team need to be better. And to go one step further, Connor Hellebuyck, they need some secondary scoring, right? No matter what Connor Hellebuyck does, you can't score one or two goals against this Blues team.
That was Jim Toth with TMA earlier today alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. That is basically the equivalent of Alex Ferrario, but up in Winnipeg.
Who's better?
I mean, I'm a little biased on this one. I would go Jim
like
Toth
Jim
100
Toth.
times out of 100. So
I'll work at it.
The Jets come into this game. They've got all the pressure in the world on them. They are the President's Trophy team this season. Connor Hellebuyck, best goalie in the world. But this team, man, they have had so many struggles in the postseason, and it feels kind of like the Cardinals from the last decade or so, Alex, where the fan base is like, yeah, you're doing great. Let's see what happens whenever you get to the playoffs. We'll believe it when we see it. And now we're in the playoffs, and they're feeling the same old again, and now you're going to feel all of the pressure in that barn later on this evening. But, Alex, the Blues are the team that has to impose that pressure, because going in, I have to imagine, I have too much respect for that Winnipeg Jets team to think they're just ready to fall on their faces before anything happens.
Didn't know you were such a big Winnipeg Jets fan.
I am of the opinion that going into this game, they're going to have a big push early on. They are going to come out swinging. They're back at home where they've been the best team in the NHL this season. Yes, for all of Connor Hellebuyck's struggles, he is a pretty damn good goalie at home, whether that's in the playoffs, regular season, anywhere. He's really good when he's playing at home in Winnipeg. Alex, we make fun of this all the time. But never has a hot start felt more important than it is tonight.
We've been planning for it all year long, boys.
Because the Blues have been the better team in this series in the first period. But when they were back in Winnipeg, even though they were better, the score didn't necessarily reflect that. You'd get to the end of the period, and in Game 1, it's 2-2. Game 2, despite the Blues well outplaying the Winnipeg Jets, it's 1-1 at the end of the first period. So you leave those saying, oh, man, Blues better team, but they didn't necessarily get rewarded from it. If you go out of that first period tonight, you're up like 2-0. That is when the pressure really gets ramped up on the Winnipeg Jets. Alex, how you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling excited, man. Like, I have to imagine today and really the last 48 hours have just been torture for Winnipeg Jets fans, which is so funny because on the other side, Blues fans are just like, this is great. 2 wins. We weren't supposed to be here. Now you're in Winnipeg. Let's see what's going to happen. If I'm Jim Montgomery, and I'm not because that man is tremendously smarter than me, the talk in that locker room before game number 5 tonight is don't just have a hot start, score on Connor Hellebuyck. Because you can go out and have a hot start. Yeah, finish. You can go out and score on Connor Hellebuyck. Or I'm sorry, you could go out and have a hot start, go out there and get 5 shots on goal in the first 3 minutes, and people are like, whoa, the Blues are buzzing. But you know what happens? A puck goes in on the other side, and it's like, yeah, but the Winnipeg Jets scored, and that's how you suck the momentum out. So a fast start is great, but to me, if you want a real game plan for this one tonight, you got to beat Hellebuyck first. You have to be the one that beats the goaltender before they beat the goaltender, because they start out buzzing. They're going to have Gabe Vilardi back in front of their home crowd. It's going to be loud. They're, I'm sure, going to try and challenge what Blues fans crowds were doing at Enterprise Center for 2 games. But if you can go out there and get in front of Connor Hellebuyck, if you can get one puck that bounces off a butt and goes in the back of the net, everybody's butt cheeks go, because everyone in that building is like, are you kidding me? Hellebuyck gave that one up. This team's going to give up a lead early. You need to win this game. There is so much pressure on Winnipeg right now. If I'm Jim Montgomery and his coaching staff, I'm looking at this Blues team and saying, fast start's great, boys. Get one past Hellebuyck early.
We knew this was likely. Now the Winnipeg Jets, as of this moment, are on the ice. They have put out their line rushes for today. Kyle Connor is on that top line with Mark Scheifele, and indeed, Gabe Vilardi is skating with them this morning.
Son of a...
He will be reunited for that top line, which was one of the best lines in the NHL this season for the Winnipeg Jets. That means Niederreiter is down with Lowry and Appleton, and Iafallo drops down to that third line with...
Say it.
Nemesnikov? I have a tick there.
You got to go fast, man.
Nemesnikov. There we go.
Real quick.
And
like
Perfetti. Perfetti, by the way, I think has been a really good player in this series. Like the one, he's not finishing at all, but he's the one guy that I feel like, okay, depth of scoring, at least you can feel his presence on the ice for them. Stanley back in with Shin on the third pair defensively as well. So that's the other potential change that they're making.
Starts. Would have never
Hellebuyck
expected
that,
that, you know?
Yeah,
I thought we were going to get
well.
Comrie tonight.
Monty going to fool them and put Hofer in the starters into practice today?
Monty's going to have all of the black aces out on the ice. Alexandrov's taking the third-line center spot.
Alex, when I look at this lineup, I see more depth of scoring than I had previously because of the Gabe Vilardi presence in that lineup. That guy's a really good player, and you've mentioned it a number of times. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be at 100%. It could be similar to Robert Thomas in game 1 or 2, where, yeah, he's technically out there, but that's not the Robert Thomas that we saw that was on that crazy point streak in the second half of the season. Or like Colton Parayko, who, yeah, he played down the stretch for the Blues, but that ain't the Colton Parayko that Connor McDavid said is the hardest defenseman in the NHL for him to go up against.
Right.
It's different. But if he's anywhere approaching 100% Gabe Vilardi, it does change their lineup. And maybe most importantly, it adds in extra lines, similar to what it was with Holloway for the Blues, where when you pull him out of the lineup, you not only lose that second line, but it also changes the way that you construct each of your top 3 lines potentially. So that is something worth monitoring early going in this game is, A, finding out what Vilardi looks like, because that'll impact how the Blues match up against them potentially, and B, what does that mean for their depth of scoring, and how does that impact the 5-on-5 play in this one?
And I agree with you to a point of saying, like, yeah, when you look at it, the depth of scoring looks a little bit more dangerous than what it did, but I'm also not as concerned about it because these guys have been irrelevant in this series. Like, Niederreiter hasn't really had any effectiveness in the offensive zone, nor has Alex Iafallo, other than when he's been playing with Connor and Scheifele. But really, we're talking about one game that he's been effective, and it was that game number 1 where he scored the goal to tie it. So until I see them begin to get more scoring opportunities, that's when it'll start to feel a little bit more of a threat. To me, this is a game that I'm not worried about Vilardi, because typically when you see guys come back from injuries that have kept them out for a little bit more than 3 or 4 weeks, it's slow getting back into the process of it. I mean, again, Robert Thomas, he was not himself in those first couple of games, but look at what game 3 and game 4 did. Gabe Vilardi is healthy to play, but Gabe Vilardi has not taken contact in a playoff game like contact in a practice or even contact in a regular season game. So this is a game where if I'm the Blues, I'm testing them. I'm testing. Let's see how healthy you are. You throw a couple of extra pushes in there, a couple of extra body checks in there. Vilardi will get better as the series goes along because the more iced reps you get, the more feel you get for the game.
I mean, look at Thomas.
Yeah, which is why Game 5 is so critical, because to me, he's not a factor. Game 7, if you get to that point, he will be a factor. So that's why pounce on this one tonight. The depth of scoring, though, man, to me, it doesn't come to their forwards. It comes to are their defensemen going to get involved in the offense? Because that's been the difference in this series. Their guys aren't getting those point shots on net, which is where you get the scramble in front. And that's how you beat Jordan Binnington, boys. You get deflections on him like you beat Hellebuyck.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, does this series feel at all like Blues versus San Jose from 2019? Blues wore down the bodies of San Jose, and by game 6, they barely had a bench. Alex, that is funny because you mentioned the exact same thing in our pre-show meeting.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was more of like big picture, because the San Jose Sharks were a team that, now remember in that series, they weren't supposed to beat Vegas. There was a real controversial face-off that was a penalty that led to San Jose winning, and then they advanced to the next round. But everyone was looking at San Jose and thinking this team's going to win the Cup. They've got Joe Thornton, they've got Marlowe, they've got Pavelski, you've got Erik Karlsson who's putting up points, Brent Burns. How's this team going to get beat?
And similar to this Jets team, that was one that was like in the midst of their run, right? They had already gone through playoff battles before, and now we're kind of getting towards the end of whatever this is going to be for the Sharks. They've got to capitalize now.
Yep.
And then the Blues did what they did.
And you know what they did? They broke that organization, because after that season, the Sharks have not made the playoffs since. Now, I don't think the Winnipeg Jets go down the path of the Sharks, because the Sharks moved on from Marlowe. A couple of years later, they moved on from Thornton. Then Pavelski gets shipped out. And then we've seen with Timo Meier and Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, that team was just torn apart. But hearing the interview on TMA earlier today, where it's like, hey, if you're Winnipeg, you can't keep running this thing back. It does feel eerily similar to the fact of you might go out there, beat this team in 6 games, and Winnipeg's going to be like, man, what do we do? There's no more Cup future for us because of this core. It does feel a lot like what the Blues did to the Sharks in that series.
I'm jacked up for this one tonight. Blues versus the Winnipeg Jets. Game 5. Pregame coverage starts at 7:30. Puck drop sometime in the 8 o'clock hour.
No,
maybe
9 o'clock hour.
101 ESPN is your home of the Blues. 48 teams, Alex, have gone up 3-2 in the best of 7 series since 2021. So over the last 4 postseasons, 48 teams go up 3-2 in that series. 41 of those 48 go on to win the series. So game 5. 5, this is a true, like, you win this one, generally speaking, you go on to win the series. Huge one tonight in Winnipeg. Alex will have pregame coverage starting at 7:30. We have full coverage for you throughout the day today. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. I recommend getting over there certainly before 11:30. We're going to have Ryan Didoshak, who is the host of the Hot Garbage Sports YouTube channel, Alex. He does this from Winnipeg. I think he has done the best breakdowns of this series that I have seen anywhere. He explained in thorough detail exactly how the Blues are making life living hell for the Winnipeg Jets, and specifically for Connor Hellebuck. He's going to explain that to us coming up in about 15 minutes. This guy is a legit coach up in Hockey Canada, so he's going to be able to break this down in, frankly, a way that we cannot. He'll do that for you coming up in 15 minutes. But coming up next, T-Bone's big mad about the Cardinals' new lineup decisions. He'll tell you why next year on BK and Ferrario.
We're going to throw Mason in the 2 spot. Newt's going to lead off. Wynn will hit second. Donnie's going to hit third. We'll keep Nato in the 4, and then we'll add Wilson in that 5 spot to protect Noel. And just inject a little speed and energy in that 2 spot and just a different look. If you look at Mason over the last couple of weeks, he's done a really nice job. The last 2 weeks, he's hitting close to 300, 750 up. Like he's putting together some good at-bats. And I think he kind of enjoys being at the top of that lineup. So we'll give him an opportunity for that. But yeah, good question.
All right, so that was Ollie Marmol yesterday on his show that he does with KMOX, the Gas House Gang. He was talking about where he expects Mason Wynn to be in the lineup. And they're going to switch us up a little bit, Alex. They were expecting to do this last night for the game. Then the game was postponed. Now you're doing it for today, the first game of this doubleheader. Lars Nootbaar will bat leadoff, and then Wynn, Donnie, Arenado, Contreras. That's your top 5. Alex, I have no issue with this whatsoever. And the reason why is just very simple. I want my 5 best hitters to be in the 5 top spots in the lineup. And over the past 2 weeks, to Ollie's point, 14 games played, a 320 batting average, 377 on base, and an 800 OPS for Mason Wynn. He got off to a really slow start in the first 5 games of the season, and ever since has been quite good for the Cardinals offensively. So if you want to put him batting second, I'm cool with it. You add some more of that speed at the top of the order. Donovan is a guy that will take a lot of pitches, so you feel like if Wynn can get on, he can steal that second opportunity. Whereas if you have him a little bit lower in the lineup, for example, Alec Burleson is a guy that is very aggressive at the plate. I'm not sure that I want him hitting in front of Burley, frankly. So I like where he's at in the lineup. I don't have a problem with this necessarily. But T-Bone did. T-Bone was big mad. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Alex.
Oh, no, please.
T-Bone will explain first, though, why he is so upset. Because he was not just mad. He was yelling at me in the office. And I promise you, I brought zero tone to the matter. I was pretty calm.
Look, I'll be the official in this battle royale right now. I didn't get the tone vibe.
Zero. I
barely felt like he was just questioning it. And Tanner, you are big mad, and I felt the tone from your side of the room.
There was a lot of tone coming from T-Bone.
I felt some cockiness over there in his little spot.
I don't care.
I will say, sometimes BK will turn and will be like, and what's the downside of that? And it's like, it was kind of like when you called me fat yesterday, you know?
I know. He just finds a way
a little bit. I went home and had arugula yesterday.
Why are you upset about them moving Mason Wynn up in the lineup?
Wilson Contreras is your best pure hitter on this team. And look, I know he got off to a slow start. But in the last 2 weeks, his numbers have climbed back up to where they're not where they should be. They're getting closer to that. Like over the last 2 weeks, 280 the average, 368 the on base. He's not hitting for as much power, but the OPS is up to 748. He is one of your 3 best hitters over the last 2 weeks. And I just don't want to pull him from that 2 spot right now. And I understand what Ollie's trying to do, but Wynn, since coming back from the IL, I mean, you mentioned those numbers in his last 14 games. Since coming back from the IL, he's hitting 250 and the on base is 304. So I think Wynn still fits better in that, whether it be the 9 spot or honestly, I would just flip him and Contreras. If you really want him in the top 5, I would put Wynn at the 5 spot and I would hit Contreras too. I want some thump at that 2 spot. And I think your best hitter has to hit 2. That's what the analytics will tell you is you want the guy that is your best hitter in that 2 spot because they get the most plate appearances. I don't want to move Contreras from that spot. I would much rather have him there than Mason Wynn, who will now be seeing more plate appearances. So I just don't like this idea of, hey, Willson Contreras is now hitting 5. I don't think you're getting the best out of Willson Contreras by hitting him in the 5th spot. That is my biggest thing. I think it is better for him to be in the 2 spot with Wynn probably either at 5 or 9 or Scott at 9, and then you can get him on base, and now you've got guys on when Contreras is coming up to the plate.
I'm just going to ask the question. Alex mentioned it. I asked this in the office as well. What's the downside to batting Mason Wynn second?
That was better.
That
was better.
If you're planning to get him into the top 5, and I agree, you should have Newt, Wynn, Donnie, Arenado, Contreras. Those are the 5 guys, in my opinion, that should be getting the most at-bats. You can put them in any order if you really want to, but those are the guys that should be in the top 5 in one way or another.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
Who's a better hitter, Herrera or Wynn?
I'd say Herrera.
Herrera or Contreras?
No, Herrera or Wynn.
Oh, Herrera for sure.
So who comes out of that in the top 5 when Herrera's back?
Wynn, probably.
So then kind of answered my question there. That's the part where I'm like, I don't really care because I don't think Wynn's going to be there long term. And this is more of it. I mean, you heard Ollie's comment there. He likes to hit in the top half of the lineup. I mean, we saw him last year. He was actually pretty successful as a leadoff hitter for them. For a while there, I'm like, hey, he might be a good leadoff hitter for you until I saw Newt go all Newt this season. It was bad. It was stupid. I'm sorry.
It's okay, man. You're tired. It's been a long playoff run.
When Wynn is there, to me, it's kind of like an experiment of like, hey, let's see what this looks like. We know that Wynn can hit in the 8 or 9 spot. Herrera's going to be back soon. Let's just see what this looks like.
Yeah, I just
kind of where I'm at. I just don't care. Like, I can get mad. I can get big mad with the best of them when it comes to some of the decisions. Like Contreras and Wynn are going to bat either 2 or 5. I'm fine with either of them hitting in either of those 2 spots. I personally prefer the speed higher up in the order. Newt gets on at a really high rate. Wynn gets on at a decent rate, but more he's a contact guy than anything else. I want that power a little bit more towards the middle of the order. And right now, you don't have very many options when it comes to power. Contreras is one of them. I want him being somewhere in that 3, 4, 5 spot if possible for me. And to Alex's point, I do think Herrera is probably going to be batting second whenever he does return to the lineup, which sounds like it's sooner rather than later. So this is probably a very short span for Wynn. And if he likes batting towards the top of the order, cool, go ahead and get it done for a few days. Let's see what it looks like.
To be fair with this, it's not like Contreras is breaking down walls these days in terms of what he's doing at the plate. I mean, he's got two extra base hits in his last 10 games. Like, it's not like he's showcasing the thump right now that says I need him in my 2-hole.
He's been fine. Yeah, Wilson Contreras has been good. He's on a hitting streak right now, and he has been a better hitter than Mason Wynn. There's no way for me to argue otherwise. I just don't think it's that big of a deal for one of them to hit 2 and the other to hit 5. And I was actually kind of surprised when T-Bone was as upset as he was, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where we were like, hey, what do you do with the order, especially against lefties, but on any given day? What do you do right now with Ivan Herrera out? Who do you bat second? And I came to the conclusion, like, I would actually be open to the idea and probably campaign for Mason Wynn to bat in that 2-hole. Now, this was when Wilson Contreras was not hitting the way that he is right now. So that does change some things. But if I was interested in him doing that 2 weeks ago, I'm certainly still interested in it now as Mason Wynn has started to get back on track offensively.
Yeah, no, I still believe that if you have your hottest hitter, and look, I see some people saying, well, Donovan is your hottest hitter. I agree, I would hit him too, but the Cardinals want to do the whole left, right thing. So they have to have a righty in this 2 spot if they're going to go with that. And I want the better hitter in the 2 spot than I do the 5 spot. And that's Wilson Contreras. I'm actually shocked by no one else being upset about it, but I think that's just more of where the Cardinals are as an organization. On a scale of 1 to 10,
how much do you think this matters? I guess that would be my follow-up question.
Like a 6 or a 7.
Oh, really? You really think? I think it's like a 1 or a 2.
I think it's poor lineup. I think it's like poor lineup construction.
How much do you think a lineup matters? I guess would be another question.
I think quite a bit. I disagree when Gersh was like, it's hard to make a bad lineup. And I went, oh God, Gersh, really? Did we just say that? It's now why he's running special projects.
Okay, come on.
I don't like this decision. I don't think it is your best lineup construction. You should be getting your better hitter most at bats, and that would be putting your best right-handed hitter in the 2 spot. And I don't think Wynn's your best hitter right now.
Else that goes into it, like the approach that your 3-hole hitter has with a runner on that's attempting to steal, that shouldn't matter at all. The fact that Mason Wynn, just the interpersonal side of things, like prefers to be towards the top of the order. He has been hitting much better. Like all of that be damned. Contreras has to be 2, Wynn should be 5, no higher, no lower.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think that is over complicating everything then. I think it is, hey, who are our best dudes, right? Who are our best dudes? That's what you should be asking the question of. And who's the better dude that is right-handed, Contreras or Wynn? The answer is Contreras.
I think the bigger issue that if we want to get frustrated about something probably should be the fact that Ollie doesn't want to steer away from this left, right. Because some of your best hitters right now are multiple lefties.
I mean, right now, I think this is your top 5.
Well, and
I don't think there's
but what I mean by that is like Donovan should be hitting 2 when you get 2 lefties at the top.
If you were open-minded to pinch hitting, which they don't want to do anymore, they are all in on the, hey, we're going to just go with these guys, then you would do that, right? Because then you can kind of bait in that left-handed lane. And because they don't want to do that.
They've done that with the right-handed hitter against a left-handed pitcher at the DH spot with Luke and Baker. They've used that spot to platoon.
And they don't, but to their point there, they don't have a top 5 guy. So like that guy's in the 6th spot.
Correct.
But if you did have one that was hitting, well, then you can set this up. Or if you were going to use JC, but they said, well, it's better for him to get starts in AAA rather than be here in this role, then you could really create that left-handed lane that you're talking about. Because I agree, based on what the analytics say, you should hit your best hitter in the 2 spot. They should be hitting Donovan too right now. But they don't want to.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Cardinals coming up in about 10 minutes. They've got a doubleheader today, a split doubleheader in Cincinnati against a red-hot Reds team. They've won 5 in a row. They're playing some good baseball. They have one of the best run differentials in Major League Baseball so far this season. So a tough task for them at the Great American Ballpark. In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. But next, we have some questions for the host of the Hot Garbage Sports YouTube channel. Alex, this guy had one of the best breakdowns that I've seen. Honestly, the best breakdown that I've seen anywhere when discussing what has gone wrong for the Winnipeg Jets in the series and how the Blues have brought out the worst in the Jets. He is a high-performance coach with Hockey Canada. He is going to join us to explain how the Blues have done this next year on 101 ESPN.
LB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londaw Chevrolet and Johnny Londaw Autoplex. Game 5 tonight between the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. And the Cardinals have a doubleheader today against the Cincinnati Reds as Game 1 is getting ready to have first pitch as Brady Singer will be getting the start for Cincinnati. Miles Michaelis will get the start for the Cardinals. Keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londaw Chevrolet and Johnny Londaw Autoplex. See them at Londaw.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The other night, I was going through a rabbit hole. I went all the way down, and I was checking out all of the potential breakdowns of this series, and there are plenty of them. The Blues are going up against a Canadian team, which means you're going to get plenty of breakdowns, and there was one that stood out above the rest. I wasn't anticipating this. It came from Hot Garbage Sports.
Yes.
And so right now, we are going out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by the host of Hot Garbage Sports. It's a YouTube channel. If you are a hockey fan, I highly recommend checking it out over there. He's also a certified performance coach with Hockey Canada, has the highest certification with them. So this is a man that knows what he is talking about. He is Ryan Didoshak joining us here on 101 ESPN. Ryan, you are a Winnipeg Jets fan, so I imagine this comes with not just the coaching side of things for you, but also the fan side of things. We appreciate you hopping on with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent, and that was one of the most fantastic intros I've ever had. I'm absolutely blushing on it, so I'm glad you were able to have a nice midnight rabbit hole there.
Well, so BK was sending me all of these links, Ryan, and so I went down this rabbit hole as well. And first of all, I have a new name or a new word that I like to use in my broadcasts, post turtle. Thanks to you, had no idea what that was. Phenomenal. But then I also love the way you ended your last video, where you were like, "Look, my gut is telling me the Blues may win this series, but my heart is with the Winnipeg Jets, so I'm going to go with my heart." But you always backed yourself up. You made sure you didn't dig yourself into a grave there. I liked it.
Well, thank you very much. And that's the criticalness of the channel when you're covering a team like the Jets. It's easy to cover the other teams because you're not emotionally invested. You just get to watch the tactics.
Yep.
But when it's the Jets, you're emotionally invested. However, as a coach, you respect great hockey regardless of where it's from. And right now, in the last 2 games, the Blues have played great hockey. They've played simple hockey. And I think you guys are underselling yourself a bit on the show because you're quite intelligent hockey people yourself.
Oh, well, we appreciate that. Alex is the pre and post guy for the Blues, so he's certainly seen a game or two in his day. I did want to get into this with you, Ryan. Like you mentioned, the Blues are playing simple hockey. They're playing great hockey. For our listeners right now, describe to them what it is that the Blues are doing offensively that has taken the Jets out of their defensive structure and has given Connor Hellebuck so many struggles early on in this series.
All right, well, we're going to have to try to connect the dots a bit here, so I'm going to rant for half a second. When it comes to the playoffs, it's a short-term tournament. That's the easiest way to look at. 7-game series feels long. It's not. It's short. 82 games is long. Seasons are long. Data is long. The analytics you get from the season is long. But the playoffs are a different game. And even though you have to win 4 games and there's 4 series, you really take it game by game and you take it series by series. So when that happens, you get a team like the Winnipeg Jets who have been tactically brilliant, strategically brilliant. They play very fast, but they play very technically. And the Blues have done an excellent job of improvising, which is what you want to do in the playoffs. When it's short term, you can throw all the data, all the record books. It's gone. It's garbage. It doesn't matter. The Blues have done an excellent job of breaking down the Jets by keeping it simple. And it all starts with Jordan Binnington from the back end first. When I watch the difference between him and Connor Hellebuck playing, Jordan Binnington is a very aggressive goaltender that likes to come out into his crease. And he does this because he is an educated scrambler. That's the professional term for it. If you want layman's term, he's a great guesser. And that's not a knock on Binnington. It's elite. I mean, the man won us a 4 Nations Cup. He's phenomenal. Tim Thomas won Stanley Cups like this. Dominic Hasek did it like this. And it's not a knock. It doesn't mean he isn't technical. He just knows that he can compete the further out he comes. And he gets the opportunity to take the game in his hands. And it will throw a team like Winnipeg off. When you go to make a tape-to-tape pass across the middle of the ice, Binnington has already read it because he has made that educated guess. And he will steal that. And that fires a team up. You can't not say it. You're fired up as a team when you get Jordan Binnington doing those. And the Jets don't know what to do with it. The Jets need to start throwing just more basic pucks on net, and they need to take a page out of St. Louis's book, because from the back end, Binnington makes that save. They leave their zone. The defensemen do it so simply. Parayko does it simply. Broberg does it simply. You carry the puck until a forward checks you, and then you move the puck. North-south, not east-west. Up the wall, chip it, get in the zone, and let those forwards do damage. I mean, I heard Patty Maroon saying it yesterday. They have roles. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what the role is. The puck goes deep, and you have two choices when the puck's deep if you're St. Louis. You keep it down low and cycle with 3, and I've seen them do that, and you throw a puck on net and send 2 or 3 on net, and you get snow and skates and sticks in front of all the defensemen and the goalies. Or you do what is very successful against Connor Hellebuyck, and you send it high to the point, and you let a booming slap shot go, and you get everybody in front of the net. Hellebuyck is very susceptible to this because he plays so deep in his crease, and that's fine. People love to knock that. When you are 6'4" and a mountain of a man, and as athletic as Hellebuyck is, you can play deep. The problem is he's playing very technical right now. And this is the best goalie in the world. I can say that with a straight face. He's getting smoked in the playoffs, but technically I can't take it away from him. He's not guessing or anticipating well enough, though, in that crease. So in my opinion, 82 games, he's studied goaltending. He says, if I put myself in this position, I got a 99.5% chance to make this save. Well, guess what? The playoffs is about 0.5. When that puck redirects, sometimes you got to be a really good educated guesser, throw that book out the window, and make a play. He hasn't done that. And the Blues haven't given him a chance to do that. So that's kind of my breakdown, the 101 of the series. You guys have already covered the nuances, which are hitting, pulling, body on body on body, but they're not hitting without purpose. They're hitting with purpose. They're separating man from puck, but they are making sure every Winnipeg Jet knows that they're there. And if they don't get a hit in, it's a slash, it's a whack, it's a pull, it's a hook. It is very critical in hockey to play clean, but also to play a little bit dirty and get away with it. That's critical. And they're awesome at it. And Winnipeg is not responding.
It's the best part.
They really aren't.
It's the best part about hockey, in my opinion, Ryan. When you get that stuff, the extracurriculars and how one team responds versus the other. You know, Ryan, for me, the biggest difference or adjustment, I should say, that I saw the Blues make was from 1 and 2 to 3 and 4, where they got their defensemen more active and more involved in the offensive zone. And you mentioned it, getting those point booming shots on Connor Hellebuyck with traffic in front is where they've really found success. Why haven't the Jets been able to adjust to that adjustment from the Blues?
So the Blues got to lose the first 2 games. This is just a guess. Coach goes into the room. Monty says, simplify it. Get it to the point. It's open. I mean, they have the same data you and I have, and I can see in the data, Hellebuyck's susceptible to point shots. Get it to the point, let our guys do some damage, and go to the net. Almost every coach worth his salt is going to lean back on that if you're down 2-0 in a series. Winnipeg now is down 2-0 in a series, and they have the opportunity to adjust. In the first game, you think maybe it's just a bad game. You go into game 4, you stick with your game plan. Didn't work for them, but it is working for St. Louis. So this is a game of chess. St. Louis has now made the next adjustment. They have the momentum in the series. Winnipeg needs to adjust in game 5, and I understand the sentiment of Blues fans and Jets fans where they're saying Winnipeg is ready to fold like a cheap tent. We've seen all the stats. They've lost 4 games every time they lose 1. There's no pushback, etc., etc. But that was last year. This is this year. Every year is different, an opportunity to make a change, and I'm really interested to see what Winnipeg is going to do, especially with the addition of Gabe Vilardi back. I can't undersell you on how important that is going to be for Winnipeg and how much St. Louis has to prepare for that. Players play. I heard you guys talk about playing fast, or Winnipeg is fast. Well, St. Louis plays fast. You don't have to be fast to play fast. It just means you're playing at the same speed on your line. You can have 3 guys playing north-south. You can have 2 guys that skate north-south and an east-west player, An example of an East-West player is like an Artemi Panarin from New York. That guy likes to go East-West. You can't have too many East-West players or you're going to get stuck. Gabe Vilardi is that north-south guy for Winnipeg. He's a big body that's about to get in front of the net. Kyle Connor's that east-west guy, and Mark Scheifele, he can do it all. So now St. Louis better not undersell what happens when he returns back to that lineup, especially in the power play in front of that net. So I'll be interested to see if St. Louis is ready for that. If I was the Blues, I would hit, cross-check, and lay the body on that man early and often. And I've seen him do it to Scheifele. I've seen him do it to Morrissey. Add one more guy to that list, and you may have a winning formula.
We're talking to Ryan Didoshak here on 101 ESPN. You can find his breakdowns over on his YouTube channel, Hot Garbage Sports. For me, my money at least, it's as good as you'll find anywhere when it comes to breaking down what you're seeing in these playoffs, especially this series between the Jets and the Blues. All right, Ryan, final question that I've got for you. You mentioned what the adjustments will be going into game number 5. They've had a couple of days off. There is plenty of time here to implement those changes for either of the two coaches. We're seeing Gabe Vilardi inserted back into this series for the first time. We will likely see Ryan Suter back into this series after the Tyler Tucker injury on the Blues side of things as well. Educated guess has been one of the themes of our conversation here. For you, educated guess-wise, what are you anticipating that will look different tonight compared to what we have seen in the first 4 games of this series?
What has to look different is the start of the game. I think you guys nailed it yesterday. The last game, Winnipeg looked like they were in control in the first period. It didn't pass the eye test. I never thought they were. I think a lot of fans didn't think they were. Winnipeg has to start hot. St. Louis is to do exactly what they're doing. If I'm the Blues, all I am focused on in the first period is not turning over pucks in my own zone. I'm getting pucks out of my zone. I'm throwing them deep, and I'm going to hit everything that moves. I'm going to take every opportunity to hit everything that moves, and I'm not going to be afraid to go to the penalty box because Winnipeg's power play has not hurt me yet. So I'm going to take that opportunity to take runs at guys like Scheifele and Morrissey. I'm going to take the hooks, the holds, and see what happens. If Winnipeg scores early on a power play, though, St. Louis is going to have to make a quick adjustment in Winnipeg because if there's a little bit of momentum that you can give to the Jets, they can put in a bunch on you really quick. So the beginning of the game to me is simple for St. Louis. Put the puck in, hit, hold, hook, get to the net. Don't change a thing.
Ryan Didoshak, one of the best in the business at breaking this stuff down. You can check out his YouTube channel, Hot Garbage Sports. If you're a hockey fan, whether you're a Blues fan or something else, you need to check out his channel. It's as good as you'll find when it comes to the breakdowns in the playoffs. Ryan, sincerely appreciate the time, man. Really excellent work over on your YouTube channel. We wish you nothing but the best, except for in this series where we hope your team gets absolutely wiped out over the next couple of games.
Yeah, Ryan, you could be an honorary Blues fan once the Blues beat the Jets, and we'll get your breakdown as the Blues go for a Stanley Cup.
The Blues are going to keep going, and I got to say, St. Louis has some of the classiest hockey fans I've ever seen. My comment section on that webpage is just nothing but appreciative, awesome, hardworking people from St. Louis and Winnipeg. So thank you so much to you guys and to that city for being so awesome.
Right, great stuff, man. You really do have awesome stuff on that YouTube. Great breakdown, and keep putting them out there, man. We love it.
We will. We're going all the way to the Cup. So if you go to the Cup, I will grit my teeth and I will get it done, and you'll see them all.
Fantastic.
That's Ryan Didoshak joining us here on 101 ESPN. One more time, his YouTube channel, Hot Garbage Sports. Be sure to check that out if you want some more breakdown on this series and really the playoffs in general. Yeah. In the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll continue our breakdown of this series. The Jets fan base is approaching this team similarly, Alex, to the way that the Cardinals fan base seemed to be approaching the Birds over the last decade or so. We'll get into that coming up at 12 o'clock. But coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. Alex, we'll get to some of the questions from the listeners here in just a moment, but I've just got one question for T-Bone. How dare you? How dare you,
Who do you
sir?
think you are that I am?
I'm T-Bone.
Did you see what happened in the first inning of the Cardinals game?
This is what happened while you guys were talking with Ryan there. So I just casually turn around because the TVs are behind me, and I look up and I go, wow, someone just hit. That was a shot. Who hit that? And then the freaking thing popped up. It was like, Mason wins, second homer of the year.
First pitch.
First pitch that you saw.
Pitch. And his first plate appearance in the number 2 hole.
He can't sustain it at this rate in the 2 hole.
No, he won't because it's impossible.
And he doesn't
One
have
pitch,
to,
one
man.
home run, boom, gone.
And he doesn't have to. You said he shouldn't be there, and he popped it.
BK likes to always talk about I don't know what he does, process over results. This is bad process with bad lineup.
But it's not. It's a fine process. It's just
It's a who cares
the
process.
Cardinals have had so many bad decisions that they've made over the years. Like there were times when Matt Carpenter was hitting like 170 and he was suddenly batting cleanup for you. That's bad process. It's just unacceptable. But this is a guy that has been one of your 3 best hitters over the past couple of weeks, and he's batting second. It is what it is.
You know what,
it's
though?
fine, man.
I appreciate T-Bone for letting it fly, you know?
He lets
Let it fly.
It was certainly an opinion. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 7 in terms of how much it was going to be a detriment to the Cardinals today. Boom, gone.
It happened, and in the middle of the interview with Ryan, I looked at T-Bone. I tried to make eye contact with him, and he avoided me at all costs that segment.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, is making the playoffs more important to the Blues because they have made it clear that they are break even unless they make it to the postseason compared to the Cardinals, for example, who potentially make money regardless of the results because of their revenue model. I think it's important to the Blues because they always spend to the cap. And Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but at times in the past we have heard that they will model as if they are going to at least get a playoff series.
Yeah.
So that revenue is important to them. They are also one of the smaller markets in a sport that is capped.
Yeah.
So it's different a little bit there. But explain from your perspective why it's so important for this team revenue-wise to get in.
It's interesting that question was because we just did a podcast episode with Chris Zimmerman, who's in charge of the business operations, and I asked him...
Last Minute Blues podcast. People can find that on YouTube, 101ESPN.com as well. All the socials as well if you just want to check the link out there.
Smash that like button, T-Bone.
Subscribe.
Share it as well. But so I asked him about that, how does a playoff run benefit and set up the franchise moving forward? And from Chris's perspective, it helps, but there's playoff revenue that's divvied amongst the 16 teams that are in there. So it's not like one gets more revenue. They divvy it out to all teams that are in the playoffs. He said what really benefits teams are the season tickets that get sold for the organization. And he said why the playoffs benefit that is because when you get the playoff run, people are excited. He said, yes, you're selling beer, you're selling food, you're getting people that are coming to the games and buying apparel. But he said with a playoff run, you purchase season tickets to get priority for those playoffs, but also because you're excited about it. So that's where he said really sets a team's future up for success are those season tickets, and playoff is just an added bonus.
Yeah, it's what I've mentioned in the past about the Cardinals. Attendance is a lagging indicator of fan interest because season tickets are sold.
Yeah.
So for the Cardinals, they have had such a massive season ticket holder base that you were never going to see like 20,000 fans in attendance for the majority of games because they just already they go into each game with like 20,000 tickets sold. And then it's about how many single game tickets do you sell for that specific game. So it's a lagging indicator in that regard. We're seeing that now with the Cardinals. They are paying for what the past couple of seasons have been. And for the Blues, it's the opposite, where it's this year, the success that they had, especially down the stretch, it's going to ignite whatever the next era of Blues hockey is going to be, and fans want to get in on that. They want to be at the front end of this era of Blues
hockey. It's the
same
as 2011, 2012 when Hitch was hired and they went into the playoffs and they got bounced, but there was so much excitement that for the next 10 years, people were always invested in that, and that's where it really sets a franchise up.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers from Bishan about sports. How can we get Hot Garbage Sports as a weekly guest? We'll probably reach out to him again if the Blues end up advancing. His breakdowns are great. So I'm all about having great content. And if we can find somebody that'll come on and give you guys a better breakdown than we can about the series, that's somebody that I want to reach out to.
And frankly, educates us. Like, the way that we can present great content is by being able to relay information. And this is somebody now that is a contact that we can use for different things that we're trying to understand a little bit better.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Can we be done with Burleson at this point? What utility does he provide?
Tanner?
Why are you pointing at me?
I don't know. You want him in the 2-hole?
No. He's not your best hitter right now.
That was Tony.
I don't think you can be done with Burleson. Last year, he showed you too much in the first half of the season to just be done with him. I think he's going to be around for a while. If nothing else, he's a nice left-handed back coming off of the bench, cheap, cost-controlled, and a good guy in the clubhouse. His future, in terms of how prominent of a role he's going to play for the Cardinals, is tied, in my opinion at least, to Nolan Gorman. If this is it, and they decide after the season, we're not investing in this style of player, this kind of production long term, and they decide to move on from him, then Burleson could take a more prominent role, whether that's via the DH, first base, whatever it ends up being moving forward. But I think those two are very much tied for the Cardinals, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Burleson is just another one of those guys that you were trying to get an answer on. Now, he's not in the same boat as Gorman because he's got more runway than what Gorman does. But after Burleson's hot start last year, I think a lot of people were like, oh, maybe he can be an impact bat that is an everyday player for you. It was another answer that you needed. So, no, you're not done with Alec Burleson. You've got more runway, and frankly, he's cost-controlled. But I think this season you keep throwing him out there because you're learning he's not the impact bat you thought he was.
Is this right? He's batting .285?
That can't be right. I don't think he is. I think he's batting. I thought he was batting like .210.
Alec Burleson is batting .285 right now.
.286, sir.
Oh. He's just not barrel. He's not hitting for any power.
No, zero power whatsoever, but...
Yeah, his slug is .325.
I mean, for the way that people talk about Alec Burleson, he's batting like .210.
His OPS plus is 87, so it's not the guy we thought it was, but he's fine.
Had a really good couple of games in Atlanta, and that was able to boost him back up from .239 as of last Monday to .285 going into today's game.
His own base is higher than his slug. Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, he's not hitting for any power whatsoever. And that's the biggest issue, and he's got to hit for some kind of power. All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to play a game of More Likely to Happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. But next, am I the only one that feels like Winnipeg is viewing the Jets basically the exact same way that we viewed the Cardinals over the last 5 to 7 years? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa, that famous destination that, look, the sun's out right now. Finally, the rain has gone away, which means you should go get some famous frozen custard. I mean, even if the rain's there, if it's a little chilly outside, Ted Drew's is always open. And that famous frozen custard, that delicious frozen custard is always there for you. 95 plus years, 4 generations of families have been running Ted Drew's, and it's been built on quality service and love for St. Louis. Whether it's the custards that you're going out there, the shakes, the malts, you can buy it in bulk and take it home with you. But the main thing to remember is it's all about tradition that you're getting to build. To be out there with family and friends and just spending time together, that's Ted Drew's for you. And while you're there, make sure you walk across the parking lot and check out the Ted Drew's gift shop, where you can shop Ted Drew's apparel. You could get Ted Drew's hats. You could get kids and adult size clothes, plus drinkware, and the most important thing, Ted Drew's gift card. So go on, check them out off of Chippewa. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
again, the Hollywood narratives, bring in Tony D'Amato, Al Pacino any given Sunday. I can't do it for you. But, either you come together as a team or you die tonight and maybe Friday as individuals. And they've made success as a team game, so they have to do it. And the city and the province is waiting for it. To be honest with you, if you get out of the first round, I'm afraid that they'll act like it's the Stanley Cup because that's how weighted this is right now.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Jim Toth earlier today on with TMA talking about what this game means to Winnipeg Jets fans, what this series means to them. Alex, he continued along in that interview and basically said, listen, everybody is just waiting to see what happens in the playoffs. This is a team that has done everything you could possibly accomplish in the regular season. There's nothing more for them to show to this fan base. It's about, can you do it when the games matter the most? And as I've heard some of the Winnipeg side of things break this series down and talk about where fans are and their lack of trust, lack of belief in the core group of players, and their questioning on just organizationally from top to bottom, the decisions at the deadline, what they did in the offseason, all of these different things. It all comes back to me too. Oh man, I recognize that. That is the exact same way that we have talked about the Cardinals for almost a decade here in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Because really since, I would say about 2015, 2016, Cardinals fans have looked at the team and said, and this is excluding the last couple of seasons where Cardinals fans just knew not a great team, but really from 2016-ish to 2022, I would say, they looked at the team and said, cool, you're going to win somewhere around 90 games, you're probably going to make the playoffs, and when you get in, you will get beat. And even when the team did make it to the NLCS, and they went up against the Washington Nationals, this fan base did not sell out that park because they basically said, we don't believe this. I think this is a fluke. Do it again to prove to me that you are a legitimate contender. And so much about what the Jets media, what the Jets fans seem to be claiming right now, it is the exact same feeling where they are just waiting for the other shoe to drop because their team is soft. They're choke artists. They can't handle the pressure of what takes place in the playoffs. Dude, it's all the same exact things that we have said about Arenado and Goldie and all of the players that have played for the Cardinals really over the last 8+ years. Are you sensing the same thing, or am I making a comparison that doesn't hold water to you?
No, I think I am sensing the same thing. I mean, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, specifically if you're the Winnipeg Jets fans, I'm done with this. I'm done with this narrative. I don't want to see you win. And I heard Jim say this on with TMA. The concern is if they win in this round, that they're just going to get swept in the next round, but they're going to feel like this was their Stanley Cup, which is very similar to what the Toronto Maple Leafs have been doing for the longest time. Like, cool, we'll celebrate beating Tampa in the first round, but then you get bounced in 6 games in the next round. The last time they went to the conference finals was in the 2017-2018 season. This is what their roster looked like at the time. Blake Wheeler, Patrick Laine, Nikolai Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Dustin Byfuglien, Brian Little. Like, those were the top players on this team. Since then, bounced in the first round where they lost to the Blues after winning 2 games on the road, bounced in the first round, which was the COVID season, bounced in the second round, which they were swept by Montreal, bubble season, missed the playoffs, bounced in the first round after losing 4 in a row, bounced in the first round after losing 4 in a row. There's no more celebration of, hey, we got to the second round, guys, or we made it to the conference final. Like the Blues, people are going to be acting as if the Stanley Cup is in St. Louis if they get to the second round because nobody expected this, but they're not going to be frustrated with it. This Winnipeg Jets fan base is not, they're going out and they're still going to support because it's the biggest thing in Winnipeg, but they're not going to act as if they're the best team in the National Hockey League if they win this series. There's going to have to be, you got to be Colorado or Dallas. And then there's going to have to be, you got to get to the conference final and win the conference final. I truly believe this is Stanley Cup or bust for this Winnipeg Jets squad because when they re-signed Connor Hellebuyck to that long-term deal and when they re-signed Mark Scheifele to that long-term deal, the narrative was, well, you're keeping these guys here because you believe they can win you a cup. And if you don't, there's 7 years left on Connor Hellebuck's deal. And if he's concerning in the playoffs now, imagine what 3 years from now look like when he's 34 or 35 years old.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, when have the Cardinals been the best team in the regular season? It's not the same. I think there are definitely some differences, right? There's never a true legit one-to-one comparison. I think the closest comparison for the Cardinals is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just they are meandering through the wilderness, going 9-8 and 10-7 every year, and just asking to find out, okay, who's the first round opponent this year? They're going to beat us 35-7. We go into the offseason and we claim that we're going to get better, and then we never do. So I think that's the best one-to-one comparison for the Cardinals right now. But I would say the other place that it's different is the history, right? The Winnipeg Jets don't have the same history and the same notoriety as the St. Louis Cardinals, who are, historically speaking, one of the most storied franchises in all of Major League Baseball. So that's another place where it does fall a little bit short. But the feeling of the fans, that's really what I'm honing in on here of, yeah, cool, do whatever you want to in the regular season. We just don't believe it.
Yep.
We don't believe that this is going to be a team that's different. We don't believe that this is the year that you're going to be able to break through. And then every time there is a moment where you're like, oh, see, look, you're proving it to me once again that you were incapable of doing it. That's what Winnipeg is doing right now. They've done it each of the past 2 years, losing in the first round, and they feel like they're doing it again now. I'm fascinated to see what this looks like tonight. The scene in Winnipeg, because when that happened in St. Louis, dude, it was a celebration. It was a cocktail party here in St. Louis over the last couple of games. Winnipeg's going to be a weird feeling in the arena. I'm sure that place is going to be buzzing to kick things off. But what happens if you get to the middle of the first period, Blues are up 1-0, and Winnipeg can't seem to find their game?
Silence.
That's where things get eerie inside of a building like that, and you can feel that when you're in the arena, and you can see weird stuff is starting to take place.
Well, and go back and listen to the broadcasts from Game 1 and Games 2. Kerb's referenced it multiple times. Every time the Blues would score or they would gain momentum, silence in that arena. And I mean, it's full. I mean, and we all have seen it, the whiteout, like it is shoulder to shoulder in that building, but they go quiet when things go wrong. And again, that's the pucker factor. That goes to show you how much pressure is on the Winnipeg Jets and the players right now.
It reminds me so much of that feeling, that like eerie sensation that kind of spreads throughout the arena. The last time that I felt that here in St. Louis was in that 2022 series against the Phillies, where everything started to implode.
Yeah.
Like the innings started to unravel, and it was like, oh my God, they're not actually going to lose this game, are they? Like, there's no way. There's no way. And you just keep feeling like that can't possibly happen. No, there's not going to be another weird break that goes against them. And it just kept happening. And eventually the Cardinals lose. We all know what took place then, and they end up missing out of the playoffs like each of the next 2 seasons, and here we are today. That's kind of how this series has felt for Winnipeg, where they go up 2-0, and they come here, and it's like, no, they can't possibly go play as poorly as they did in Game 3, and then Game 4 happens. And so now we're all waiting to find out what is the response. Gabe Vilardi back into the lineup. They've got Logan Stanley back in there, who will add that physical presence for them on the back end. Tyler Tucker, who's been a menace. He's been a thorn in the side of the Winnipeg Jets over the past couple of games. He's not in there for the Blues tonight either. It's just, man, so much about this game is compelling to me from a theatrical standpoint, from an X's and O's standpoint, from a what does this mean for the Winnipeg Jets franchise in the city of Winnipeg standpoint. Like, who knows if they don't end up winning this series, does the fan base just check out? And then I'm not trying to overstate this. Does the team move 3 to 5 years from now? And we look at this series as the real catalyst as to why they were forced to relocate. Like, this is, it doesn't get bigger than this.
Well, and then the roster. I mean, I know Jim mentioned this on the broadcast, but this is why I kind of compare it to the San Jose Sharks. How many guys are like, I'm done with this? How many guys say, or ask to be traded? I mean, look, Nikolai Ehlers is a free agent, and they might not re-sign him / Ehlers might not want to stay there.
We've seen how big that guy is for this lineup.
Absolutely. And so, like, think of that. Like, you've had Mark Scheifele, who will be 33 years old, who's got, 7 more years on his deal? How frustrated does he get? Kyle Connor's a free agent after next season. How frustrated does he get? Like, you could see the implosion of a Winnipeg Jets team because of this season.
And Kyle Connor's the kind of guy that, like, you said he has 1 year left on his deal?
He's 28 years old. Yeah, he will be 29 going into his 30 age when he's an unrestricted free agent.
And if he tells you this offseason, I'm not coming back. Yep. I'm not resigning here. This is not something that I'm interested in. You probably have to deal.
He's got a 10-team no trade list too, a modified no trade, and that's the thing about Winnipeg. Like, I listed all of those names to you on what 2017-2018 Winnipeg Jets roster looked like. Dude, the guys that were on that team, they were drafted by the Jets.
They have to. How else do you get guys to come to Winnipeg?
That's the thing. I mean, we heard Doug say you're already 11th on that list. If you're Winnipeg, you're like 31 on that list.
Who's below them?
Probably Buffalo right now.
I'm being serious. Who's below them?
I'd put Buffalo up there.
I think Buffalo would probably be below them.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, you want to go somewhere that literally has not even tasted. They've drafted top 10 over the last 12 seasons, or a team that makes the playoffs almost every single year. You just get bounced in the first round.
I don't know, man. I've never been to Winnipeg, and I've never been to Buffalo.
They're both as cold. It's pretty snowy in Buffalo.
Yeah. I don't know. I would say, like, the taxes and dollar side of things,
maybe.
Like, that could play into this as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Some guys just, like, American-born players, I don't know that they want to go to Winnipeg.
Well, no, American-born players specifically want to go to Texas, to Vegas. They want to go to those places, Florida.
Tampa.
The Canadian players, though, they want to go to Toronto. They want to go to
Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal.
Vancouver,
I'm trying to think. Vancouver, maybe not so much now from what that's turned into. But yeah, I mean, there's just Winnipeg. In terms of the Canadian teams, you're the bottom of all of those Canadian teams, I would imagine, which is not an easy thing to do if you're Winnipeg.
He's Alex Estebon on BK. Can't overstate the impact of tonight's Game 5. I mentioned it earlier today. Teams that go up 3-2 in the best-of-7 series. So teams that win Game 5 after the series is tied at 2 go on to win 41 of the last 48 series. That is dating back to 2021. So post-COVID, 41 of the last 48 teams that win Game 5 after the series was tied at 2 go on to win that 7-game series. Big game coming up tonight for the St. Louis Blues in Winnipeg. Alex will have pregame coverage starting at 7:30. We've got a Blues rewind between 6 and 7:30. So basically, stay tuned to 101 ESPN from now until, let's call it 9 o'clock. And you'll be able to hear all of the pregame coverage leading into puck drop in Winnipeg. No better place to be than right here on 101
Stay here till
ESPN.
1:30 in the morning. I'll take care of you.
You think 1:30, roughly?
9 o'clock. I think this game's going to overtime. Yeah.
Oh, this will be like a triple OT.
This feels like a double OT kind of game, and I'm sorry, Graham Francis is going to be. Oh yeah,
I'll wake you up in the office.
You know what, buddy? You're on your own
tomorrow. So I wish you the best.
You're doing show prep. I'll show up at 10:50.
He's Alex Estebon on BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely. Alex, let's start out with this. More likely to happen for the St. Louis Cardinals. Nolan Gorman is traded in the offseason, or Jordan Walker's traded in the offseason.
I'll say Nolan Gorman is traded in the offseason because they have more. They have other players in their system that can play that position. They don't profile like Gorman, but you've got Donovan, you've got Sajasi, you will have Weatherholt, and Walker. You don't have a whole lot of outfielders in your system. So I'll say Gorman.
I'd say Gorman as well. I think Walker's the type of prospect that either lives up to the potential in your system or just you stick with him until the very end. I think he's the kind of prospect you don't move on from because he is one that it feels like could really come back to bite you. And Gorman could do that as well with his pure power from the left side, but he didn't have the same pedigree as a prospect like top 5 in baseball like Walker did, so I'll say Gorman.
Is there an argument to be made, though, that the smarter move would be trading Jordan Walker because of the value that he provides to you via trade?
There's an argument.
There's another team out there that says, I see the unlocked potential here. To your point, T-Bone, like, he's still a big-time prospect. He's still very young, and he has a lot of the attributes that you look for in a big-time player. And now he's playable defensively, so there's no issues there. It's just, can you fix the bat? And if you can find a team out there that truly believes that they have what it takes to get that out of him, he could still have a ton of value to somebody. Whereas Nolan Gorman, maybe I'm wrong on this, I just am not sure how much teams are going to value his specific profile via trade. And what they could do, this requires a few different moving parts here, but whether it's Sajasi or eventually J.J. Weatherholt, you have an internal replacement at second base. You just put Donovan out in right field potentially.
My wonder, though, is if a team sees the power potential of Gorman and sees what Tommy Edman is doing with the Dodgers right now, sees what Randy Arozarena had success with elsewhere, I wonder if a team says Cardinals are doing something wrong and we can unlock Gorman to be a 40-plus home run hitter.
Totally possible. I would say the same thing is true of Jordan Walker, and the ceiling for him is much higher because he could hit for average and power, and he's pretty decent defensively. He has this massive frame. Like, Walker has all of the tools. I would not do that. I want to make that clear. But if I were making the case on why it would make more sense after the season to move on from Gorman than Walker, or excuse me, to move on from Walker than Gorman, I think that's the case that I would make. But I agree with you guys. I do think it's Gorman. I just wanted to present the other side.
Guys,
Alex?
more likely to happen, Zach Bolduc or Jimmy Snuggerud scores tonight?
Zach Bolduc. I think he's the guy that, I would pinpoint right now, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the 1 o'clock hour, but he's the guy that I would look at and say, I think there's still more there. I don't think he's had a bad series, but the scoring hasn't been there yet. I think Zach Bolduc scores a goal on the power play tonight.
I would lean towards Bolduc as well, and I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the power play. The power play, he hasn't really gotten unless you can think of one that I'm forgetting, Alex. I don't think he's gotten really a grade A chance on the power play just yet, kind of in the middle of the ice. They've done a really good job
kind of keeping him locked away.
Yeah, so at some point I think that will break open for one opportunity, and then it's just a matter of does he capitalize. So I would say more likely it's Bolduc.
Mine's Snuggerud. I think you're going to see the Blues really try and capitalize on the matchups, and I'm just waiting for Snuggerud to break out right now. Like, he continues to have great games, but it's just that line has been so effective. We've seen Thomas take over. We've seen Buchnevich take over. I really feel like we are going to see a game at some point where Jimmy Snuggerud takes over.
Guys, more likely to happen, Connor Hellebuck gets pulled for the 3rd straight game tonight, or he pitches a shutout.
I think it's more likely he gets pulled. I don't think they're going to pitch a shutout tonight.
No. I would say pulled as well, and I think Scott Arniel is going to have a quick hook. Like, I really wonder if the conversations in that coaching staff room right now is, what's the number we pull him at?
Can I go the opposite direction on that part, though? I don't think he gets pulled no matter what tonight. You're not pulling him in 3 straight games. I think they go back to him in Game 6.
Oh, I would too.
I think they say, Hellebuck's our guy, we're going down with our guy.
Look,
no matter what.
If I'm the general manager, if I'm the owner of the Winnipeg Jets, you gave this guy 7 more years because you told me he would be the guy that gets us a Stanley Cup, and you're going to pull him? No way. Yeah, I play him no matter what the way through. If I'm going to go down, I'm going down with my best dude.
Yeah, I would say more likely he gets pulled because I don't think he's going to put up a shutout, but I do agree with you guys. I think you probably have to just stick with him, and no matter what, go to him in Game 6. Look, you live or die with your best goaltender in the playoffs, in my opinion.
I get it, but, man, you go down by 2 goals, Hellebuck might be giving up 3 more. your team might be checked out. And if they're checked out, you ain't winning game 6.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. More likely to happen for the Cardinals. Their next manager is a guy with prior experience in the organization, or Chaim Bloom goes out and gets his own guy. There are a lot of options for guys that had prior experience in the organization, like whether that's Ollie just remains in his current chair, or they hire Descalso is a possibility. They hire Skip Schumacher. They hire Albert Pujols. They hire Yadier Molina. All of those guys are at least out there as options. Chaim Bloom's prior history, there's really not many.
Joe Madden.
Basically Madden. And I have no idea what their relationship is like. That's not to say it's good or bad. I legitimately don't know.
Yeah.
So I would say it's more likely that it's somebody with prior experience in the organization, just because of the number of options that are available for me there, including Ollie, by the way.
That's kind of where I'm at. I think they're going to look at this as, and I guess you could kind of tie this into Chaim getting his own guy, because Chaim's going to go make this decision, but it's not somebody that he's got a prior relationship with. I think this is going to be somebody that has ties to the Cardinals, and I really think we're talking Skip or Pujols.
Yeah, I would lean towards the ties with the Cardinals, because I would think Skip would be his number one target if he wanted to go external. But like you said, he's got the ties to the organization. But if it's not Skip, then I think it would be he would go outside. I don't think he would bring in a former future Hall of Famer in Pujols or Molina. If it's not Skip, then I think he would go for that clean break.
I think the most likely scenario is Ollie's back next year. If I'm just if we were setting the odds right now, I think the most likely scenario to me is that Ollie would return in his current capacity as manager.
That one I go the other way. I think what they're going to do is they're going to bring somebody in for a fresh start with Chaim taking over.
I lean 60-40 right now that they would return Ollie, but I think it just depends on what the rest of this year looks like. If he finishes below 500 for the second time in the last 3 years and has missed the playoffs 3 straight years in a row, how can you really sell it's Chaim Bloom, it's a new start for Cardinals baseball, but then you keep the manager that's had 3 bad years.
And also remember with Joe Madden, like he wasn't a manager with the Angels, like he was a part of the management or the coaching staff, and when he got to Tampa, that's where he got his first shot at being a manager. So I wonder if Chaim's looking at it that way.
From the 314, guys, what's more likely to happen? Dalibor Dvorsky starts next season as the starting center for the Blues, or they acquire a new center via trade or free agency this offseason?
I don't think they're going to acquire another centerman. If anything, if it's not Dvorsky, I can see him re-signing Radek Faksa and having Sundqvist play out the remainder of his contract and have Dvorsky kind of as a utility wing / centerman. The only guy that I would have like a tinfoil on is they go try and get Trent Frederick, because Trent Frederick can be your third-line center next year, and then when Dvorsky is ready, that's a perfect fourth-line centerman for you moving forward. And Sundqvist has only got 1 year left. You don't bring back Radek Faksa. So I'm going to say it's more likely that Dvorsky starts at center, because I don't think they're going to go out and sign somebody.
Yeah, I would lean towards Dvorsky as well. I don't think they want to go to free agency, because if you go to free agency, what you'd be looking for is more of like a 1 year, 2 year type of deal. That way you can quickly, when Dvorsky is ready, make that move. Problem is, when you go to free agency, multiple guys are looking for long-term deals, so it's a lot harder.
I will say, man, Trent Frederick's best years playing center was in Boston with Jim Montgomery. It's why that tinfoil to me, it's kind of like my spidey senses tingling.
Well, what do you think Trent Frederick gets?
That I don't know. It's not going to be as much as you think, because he's injured pretty much this entire season and hasn't had the greatest postseason with Edmonton. I don't know if it's going to be like a bridge deal, because he's only 27. Maybe you give him a couple of years and then you have the conversations again. I don't think he's going to get overpaid, though.
My bet is that he gets the Brandon Saad deal.
4x4?
$4 to $4.5 million per year, maybe a little bit more because of the inflation of the league since that Brandon Saad deal was signed. 4 by 4.5, 4 by 5, something like that.
Yeah.
And if he's going to get a deal like that, I just don't know that I'm locking up that kind of money for a player that is expected to be in my third line when I have so many other contributors right now. I feel like I would potentially be blocking a spot. And this is no disrespect to Trent Frederick. He'll get that deal and probably earn it from somebody else. I feel like I'm blocking guys that I want to potentially be in there over Trent Frederick down the line. So I would not do that personally this offseason unless it was hey, I want to recoup some value here. I think I'm better than what my current offers are out there. I'll take a 1 year deal worth $5 million somewhere. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, he would make all the sense in the world for the Blues. Just a matter of what he's looking for and what he's anticipating in the in the market this offseason. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, which Western Conference teams are set up best, not just for the here and now, but for the next 3 to 5 years, and where did the Blues rank on that list? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, St. Louis's #1 choice for HVAC system care. ClassicAirCare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. And you hear me talk about them all the time. Had them since 2016 when I purchased our first home. My parents have been using them for the longest time that I can remember, since my dad has owned a home. But listen to also the tons of positive Google reviews that are out there. There's over 2,500 Google reviews with a 4.8 rating. This one from Michelle. John provided exceptional service, appreciated his knowledge and professionalism. He gave me an honest status of our HVAC unit, as well as educated me on some changes that I should make. Additionally, he made me aware of some surrounding things to look out for and be aware of as it relates to my AC unit. And at this time of the year, you need to have that care for your HVAC system. So make sure you give them a call today. Schedule online. Make sure you check out the maintenance agreement that they have. There's also financing options if you want to purchase a new HVAC system. ClassicAirCare.com. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. ClassicAirCare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Game 5 tonight between the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets as the series is tied at 2 games apiece. Well, pregame coverage tonight starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and Joey Vitale. And tonight, the Cardinals played 2 as they currently leading 1-0 in the top of the 5th inning against Cincinnati Reds. Miles Mikolas is on the mound for St. Louis in Game 1. Steven Matz will get the start in Game 2 of today's doubleheader. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See him at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, just to put a cap on the last segment that we were doing, we talked a little bit about what the potential contract would look like if the Blues were going to go out and acquire somebody like a Trent Frederick this offseason. Just look this up. Daily Faceoff has their initial projections for this year's free agents out. They had it at a 4-year deal worth $4 million per year for Frederick. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
It's something that I'd like to start a negotiation with. If I could get him maybe at like 3.5 for 4 years, then absolutely. Because to me, in how that will project with the cap moving up, it's kind of like what Tyler Bozak was when they signed him to that deal, to where it was like, look, it's not eating that much of a percentage of your cap. And it's really going to come down to, does Jim Montgomery thinks he can get the best of Frederick? Because when Frederick played with Boston, he was a third-line center that could give you 15 to 20 goals. When he was without Jim Montgomery, he was a fourth-line center at best.
Somebody that I would be interested in, like if we're going to go down this path real quick, and again, we'll talk about the Western Conference teams that are best set up for the next 2 to 3 years here in just a moment. Mikael Granlund is projected on this to get a 2-year deal worth $4.5 per year.
Oh, man. I think that's going to be more because he's been playing well for Dallas, and he's making $5 million right now.
Totally could be. If that is the market for both of them, 4x4 or 2x4.5 for Granlund, I would rather go the Granlund route because it's a shorter span. And I could use that as more of a placeholder. And then whenever Dalibor Dvorsky is ready, he can be inserted into the lineup in that spot.
If I'm not mistaken, haven't they been using Granlund on the wing with Dallas? Now, obviously, he could play the face-off.
He's been primarily on the wing, yes.
Yeah.
But for his career, he's like a 49% face-off guy, so it's not like that's a huge issue for him. But yes, he has primarily been on the wing for the Dallas Stars.
I think the way that Frederick plays is more profiling of what the Blues would want than Granlund. But, I mean, look, if it's 2 for 4.5 with Granlund, I mean, I'm not going to be upset about that. That's depth of scoring, and, I mean, he's a pretty consistent player for you. The thing about it is I don't know if you necessarily need that. My first priority would be going to Radek Faksa and being like, hey, what do you want? Because if we're talking like $1.5 million for him and just do a 1-year deal or 2-year deal, then I'll run it back with Sonny for 1 more year and just have Sonny as a wing/center with Dvorsky. I'm more looking at it as big picture because in 2 years, Sonny and Faksa won't be here, and now you're looking to fill the 4th and the 3rd-line center spot if Dvorsky's not ready.
If I'm making a move this offseason, it's probably defensively.
Oh, I agree.
That's really more
and
where
it's not
I'd
on the free agent market.
I would be trying to trade for somebody. There's the Aaron Ekblad move that you could make out there. He's 29 years old, and he's projected in this scenario to get 7x7. It's a lot of money, and I think that you're going to have some big money defensemen coming up, specifically with Phil Broberg. So I don't know that that's the direction that I would go, but that is a conversation for a later day. For right now, the conversation is which Western Conference teams are set up best for the next 3 to 5 years. Alex, we brought this up in the office because T-Bone asked us about this. For you, when you think about how you stack up these Western Conference teams, where do the Blues stand in that regard?
To me, of the teams that are in there right in the playoffs and right now, and if we're going big picture, they're the 3rd best team set up for future. They're behind the Minnesota Wild, who, I mean, I don't know how anybody could have somebody higher than Minnesota. Minnesota is going to have $20 million in cap space next year. Yes, they have to re-sign Kirill Kaprizov, but the year that they have to re-sign Kaprizov, they're going to have $49 million. They've got 3 guys on the defensive core in Brock Faber and Zeev Buium, who are expected to be top pair defensemen, 19 and 22 years old. So to me, they're the team that's set up for the most success if we're going like big picture here. I'd have Dallas in front of them as well because Dallas, has Mikko Rantanen locked up moving forward. They're going to be getting out of the Sagan and the Ben contracts in the next couple of years, and they've got a ton of young players on their roster. But I don't see another team that's better set up for long-term success than what the Blues are, other than Minnesota and Dallas, because the contracts that people would say, wow, they're still tied with them, those are going to be off the books in 2 years. Potentially before that, if the Blues decide to try and get aggressive and move off from guys like Falk or Nick Leddy or Torrey Krug. But on top of that, man, they've got these pieces locked up right now. You're going to have Snuggerud, who's still going to be cheap and cost-controlled, Bolduc as well. Neighbors has already got a contract for a couple of more years. And the only guys we're going to be talking about that you need to lock up are Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. So I think the Blues are set up for more success than Colorado, because Colorado has already had to make cap decisions, and they're going to have to again moving forward when Cale Makar's up in a couple of years. We've already talked about the Winnipeg Jets and the situation that they're in, and I personally think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to start seeing some decline too.
They could. They're always the team that I just don't know what to do with in a conversation like this, because they're going to churn that roster over so much over the next few years. I have no idea what it's going to look like. So could they be number one on this list when we look back? Like, if we look back at this conversation, in 2025, we said X, Y, and Z were the best teams for the next 3 to 5 years. We didn't mention Vegas. Why were we wrong? It's probably because they acquired 2 or 3 new superstars. That's probably the direction that it would have had to go.
The only reason that I wouldn't say that, though, is because at some point that well runs dry.
Like, I would think so, but it hasn't yet.
It hasn't, and that's why it's like I wonder if some teams are starting to smarten up, but like at some point you just don't have the prospects or the picks. I don't think they have a first-round pick until 2027, if I'm not mistaken. And you're right, like this team always finds ways to do it, and frankly, they have no heart. They'll just trade dudes that are supposed to be franchise icons and go make themselves better.
Like the next guy that goes is Mark Stone, probably
Mark Stone or Ivan Barbashev, and probably move on from that again, or one of the defensemen, Shea Theodore, we talked about this past offseason.
Exactly.
I can see it, but I also think by the time they start talking about moving on from those players, they're older and the value's not the same.
LA was a team that I thought about, and then I was like, Doughty's getting up there in age. At a certain point, he's going to decline. Kopitar is like almost 40. Again, these guys are going to decline at some point. And there's such significant pieces to what they're trying to do right now that I don't know that I could put them in the conversation for the next 3 to 5 years. I will disagree a little bit on Colorado. And the reason why is because like they have the pieces that you need in order to sustain winning. When you have McKinnon and Makar, that is the starting point for a championship contender every year. It's like starting with Josh Allen in the NFL. Like, I don't know if they're going to win a title at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, but I'm always going to have them in the conversation because you have that guy, right? So for McKinnon and Makar, I've got to put them in the conversation. I think they would be on my list, probably slightly ahead of the Blues right now. But that goes back to the team building conversation we've had a million different times. Mm-hmm. I'm with you, though. It's like Colorado, Dallas, you could argue Minnesota. It's kind of it. Like the Blues are somewhere in that top 3 to 5 over the next 3 to 5 years.
And I think where the Blues are at, they've got untapped potential of guys that we don't even know who they are yet. Like we're seeing what Dylan Holloway is. What do you think another year of Holloway? Holloway could be a star that we didn't know that they had. We've already talked about that, to say the least. Jimmy Snuggerud is halfway through his first season in the NHL. Has played like 10 games and has already been a factor in this. Bolduc, we've discussed, like Dvorsky's not even in this conversation. It feels like the Blues are in a position that the Chicago Blackhawks were in once they had Taves and Kane and Seabrook and Keith. And I'm not saying you've got those players. What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is they found.
I take us number one.
I mean, I could argue though that Robert Thomas is putting up points like Jonathan Taves did early on that season. But
I don't think you have Kane.
Maybe you do in Dylan Holloway. We'll find out.
We'll see.
What I'm saying, though, is when they knew that they had the centerpieces for success, they went out there and they got that missing piece with all of the assets. And they said, cool, now we've got our franchise, and now look at what they've done. 3 cups in 5 years. That's where the Blues are at to me right now, and it's where Minnesota is at. I feel like Colorado is a little bit on the back end of that. I'm not saying they're going to fall on their face because you're right. McKinnon, Makar.
Natchez was such a big move.
It absolutely was. But what happens when Natchez wants $10 or $11 million?
Yeah, I mean, we're 3 years down the road. Who knows where the cap's at?
Totally. And then Makar obviously is going to get paid in 3 years as well. It's why it feels like they capitalized. They still need to win a couple of more because at some point that's going to start trending in the other direction.
And that's why I try to keep this to a 3 to 5 year stretch. I have no idea what's going to happen 7 years from now.
Yeah.
Like 7 years from now, from previously to where we are today. think about what the league looked like compared to where we're at today. It's completely different. It's been overhauled.
7 years
the
ago,
Penguins
T-Bone
were
was
one of the
8.
best teams in the league at that point in time, and now they are the worst team in the league. They just fired their coach that won them 100 different Stanley Cups. So it's hard to go that far out, but for the next 3 years, I think Colorado's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be right at or near the top of this division. But all of this goes back to the team that we have not mentioned a single time is Winnipeg. Not once have we brought them up.
I think Winnipeg might be falling more into the Pittsburgh Penguins conversation more than anything.
Could be. You mentioned the Sharks, and that's probably the best comparison for them because the Sharks were a really good team for an extended stretch of time, but they weren't the historically great team the way that the Penguins were.
Look at that. Looking at their roster. So after the 2018-2019 season, they moved on from Patrick Marleau. Still had Joe Thornton that year. Still had Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns that year. But the following year is when they fired Pete DeBoer. They got rid of Burns. They got rid of Joe Thornton. They got rid of Erik Karlsson. But they missed the playoffs the year after the Blues kicked them out of the playoffs. So I do really think they're going to be looking more on that front. Not in terms of having to blow it up completely and go into a rebuild. I wonder, though, if you get bounced again and next year you struggle, you start to see a lot of guys ask to be traded away.
The Kyle Connor thing for them is where I wonder what happens. That's the inflection point.
Is that the Pavelski one? Because that was what San Jose had, right?
I think of it more almost as the Vancouver decisions that they've made over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Or honestly, and I know he's not an RFA, but kind of like Matthew Tkachuk, where Matthew was like, hey, I'm not re-signing here. Your future's not good. So move me now, and they opted to move him now. But, I mean, when one goes, I mean, look at what Quinn Hughes was saying with Vancouver this year. Like, if you trade Elias Pettersson and or JT Miller, you're going to have to move me because this organization's going in an opposite direction. If you can't, it starts this year with Nikolai Ehlers. Ehlers, we're seeing the impact of what happens when he's not in the lineup. If Ehlers doesn't come back, and then the following year Kyle Connor says, I'm not re-signing, you're going to start to have a lot more guys say, well, where's this going right now?
All of this is why there's so much pressure on Winnipeg right now.
Yep.
Because this is the backdrop to every conversation they're having in Winnipeg. And beyond just the roster manipulation, though, what does this mean for our long-term future on the ice? It's also off of the ice of what if we don't capitalize on this run and fans decide, you know what, we're done. We're out on this. And they don't continue buying tickets the way that they did this year because next year's not a potential President's Trophy winner.
Yeah.
And now you've got a lack of attendance in the smallest market in the NHL for a team that's going in the wrong direction. And they've already been talking about the potential of relocation for that franchise. So all of that is bottled up tonight. In Game 5 against the St. Louis Blues in the first round, given the history of what they've been in the playoffs where they win a game and they lose 4 each of the last couple of seasons. It's all right there. It's all right there.
It's weird to be in this position, but man, the Blues have a history of doing this in terms of breaking organizations in the playoffs. They did it with the Kings. They did it with the Blackhawks, and they did it with the Sharks.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, the Jets are counting on a big boost to their 5-on-5 offense with Gabe Vilardi's return to the lineup. How do the Blues prevent that? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. The Junk Drawer is next here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, can I read you the latest that comes from Bill Belichick? He just released a statement moments ago.
At least I know I'm not going to get called fat this segment, so go for it, man.
I was going to ask you for advice on how to fly with a 2-year-old, but if anybody on the text line has anything for that, go ahead and throw that in. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We're attempting to do that tomorrow on our way to Pittsburgh.
Load up on snacks and distraction items.
That's the hope.
How long is the flight to Pittsburgh?
Like 2 hours.
Oh, that's not too bad.
That's not. We flew when we did Orlando last year for Disney. Adelaide, I think, was 3, and I think Emma was 1.5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's not as bad as you think. You just got to go at the right time with nap time or bedtime.
Yeah, we did neither of those two things.
Good. Okay,
because there's only one direct flight from here to Pittsburgh.
What time are you going?
4 o'clock, right after his nap time.
Oh, that's a rookie mistake.
Yeah, that's.
We can try to push it. We can attempt to. We'll see.
Good luck, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what that's like.
Yeah, you don't push naps. Yeah, so the child just says, "I'm not going to sleep."
I don't blame them.
All right, so Bill Belichick just released a statement. Quote, you guys know the backstory of this. Bill Belichick did a really awkward and uncomfortable interview on CBS over the weekend, and his girlfriend /
manager,
publicist, I guess, manager, secretary.
I have a lot of images that I wish were not in my head now.
I mean, you're familiar, right?
I'm familiar. It's just Bill Belichick with a secretary. It's just
his junior, and it's an interesting thing. And there's been a lot of criticism about the way that she has manipulated some of his work-life balance.
Bill without a hoodie on.
Anyways, so he did a really weird and uncomfortable interview with CBS Sunday Morning to promote his new book that he just released. And the book is mostly about like how he built the Patriots into this massive business, right? Like they went from being like worth $100 million to $10 billion during his time.
You're welcome, RK.
As the head coach there. And it was about his day-to-day operations and all of these different things. But there was a chapter in there about some of the failings that he had as a head coach. So, of course, that's what's going to make the most news. Here's the quote from Bill Belichick. I agreed to speak to CBS Sunday Morning to promote my new book. Prior to the interview, I clearly communicated with my publicist that any promotional interviews I participate in would agree to solely focus on the contents of the book. Unfortunately, that expectation was not honored during this interview. I was surprised when unrelated topics were introduced, and I repeatedly expressed to the reporter and to the producers that I prefer to keep the conversation centered on the book. After this occurred several times, Jordan, with whom I share a both personal and professional relationship, stepped in to reiterate that point to help refocus the discussion. She was not deflecting any specific question or topic, but simply doing her job to ensure that the interview would stay on track. Some of the clips make it appear as though it was avoiding a question of how we met, but we have been open about the fact that Jordan and I met on a flight to Palm Beach back in 2021. The final 8-minute segment does not reflect the productive 35-minute conversation that we had, which covered a wide range of topics related to my career. Instead, it prevents the subjectively edited clips and stills from just a few minutes in that interview to suggest what is a completely false narrative that Jordan was attempting to control the conversation.
Who cares, man?
This is going really poorly for Belichick so far at North Carolina. Like, really poorly. There has not been a single positive news story that has come. And listen, this is the time of the year where you don't expect a lot of good news stories to come from your football team.
Just avoid the bad ones.
There is just way too much stuff going on with Belichick. All of the NFL teams that avoided him, they've got to be saying, whew, thank God. If you're the Falcons right now, and listen, they've got a million different things wrong. But if you're the Falcons right now and your options were like Raheem Morris or Bill Belichick, you've got to be feeling pretty good that you picked Raheem Morris, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, this just seems like what are we trying to accomplish here? Like, we're doing an interview with them, and now we're sending out press releases about how they're deflecting the blame and how this looks bad. Like, who cares, man? If I'm Bill, I'm not doing these interviews. I know you're promoting your book, but you're a college coach right now. I don't need to promote my book. I'm Bill freaking Belichick. The bigger problem is I did a 35-minute conversation about my book.
Dude, for the last week, it's been story after story after story after story after story, and they keep adding fuel to the fire. She tweeted out, she's been like retweeting a bunch of people that are saying horrible things about the reporter, and she's been out there like, putting out videos and clips.
Yeah,
It's
she's toxic.
just weird. All of this.
Well, did you see the latest? I think it was this morning. Maybe it's just added on, but apparently she was a big reason for Hard Knocks bailing on UNC because she wanted to have more control over the way it was done, which is just weird.
That's the biggest mistake he made.
Yeah.
That was the
Everybody
biggest
that emails
mistake.
Belichick has to CC her on the emails.
Yeah, that's the biggest mistake he made.
It's a lot going on here.
But I also think that all this goes away if you win.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about it if you're winning.
I think if you're the Falcons, and I'm glad it's interesting you brought them up because, like, I think Raheem Morris is fine. I still think you would look at Belichick and go, man, that guy still has the winning pedigree that even these outside distractions in the offseason we could kind of deal with if he's able to win football games.
Really, you fix this by saying, Bill, enough with the girlfriend. Like, that's how it feels like this gets fixed. Bill.
Who says that to him?
Nobody.
You think,
not in college,
somebody
nobody.
at North Carolina has more power than Bill Belichick?
No. In the NFL, somebody says that.
I don't know, man.
I don't even think it works in the NFL. I don't think you can. I don't think you can bring that up.
I think that's part of why he didn't get hired.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
He's got to be okay with it then. Like, you can't be bitter about not being in the NFL if he is. And I know the whole conversation was like, could he go back? And then, of course, he's stuck with college. But if you're bitter about it, you know why. Again, that's why it's like I hear that. I see the press release, and I'm like, dude, you did this to yourself. Like, there was one decision you made, and it's why you're in this position right now.
Yeah, it's been a really strange few months for Bill Belichick, to put it
Again,
lightly.
if I was Bill, I'm more pissed that they made me do a 35-minute interview. Can we keep this to 12 to 15?
I mean, this is what you do, though. If you're gonna sell a book, he was the one that chose to write the book. If you want to sell that book, this is what's required of you. You have to go on the full press tour.
35 minutes for one interview?
That's the way it works, dude.
They'll
When you're
cut up
doing
the
these
best
kinds
of
of
it.
interviews, I mean, Dan Patrick does this, right? That's one of the things that he's really excellent at, is he will get interviews. A lot of the stuff that you see on his show, it is pre-recorded. They will record for like 30 minutes. And what you see on his show is the best 7 minutes of that 35-minute conversation. So, yeah, this is what they do on some of those shows, man. They'll pull the full thing, and then whatever the best parts of it is what they air on network TV. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into a couple things for NFL quick hitters, including Bill Belichick, and T-Bone mentioned it. The NFL Hard Knocks that was supposed to come to college that never ended up happening, and why that didn't happen. We'll get into that coming up in 15 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. But next, the Jets are counting on a big boost from their 5-on-5 offense. There's one player they're expecting it from. How do the Blues prevent that from taking place in Game 5? We'll tell you next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Cardinals in action right now. Bottom of the 6th inning, 1 out. Miles Michaelis has hit his wall. This tends to happen for him. 3rd time through the order. Single, another single. Gavin Lux coming to the plate. Ollie Marmol going to the bullpen saying, that's enough. We have seen enough from Miles Michaelis.
Down.
He really got him moving, too. They had a little mound visit to buy some extra time, and I was like, boy, are they going to stick with Michaelis? And then the camera cuts, and whoop, there goes Ollie.
This is an interesting spot, though, because you got a lefty coming up, which means I would imagine, I haven't seen what they're going to do here, but probably JoJo Romero coming into the game. Maybe you go to John King in this spot, one of those two. You don't really have a great option right here. This is where you get into that, like, hey, we're in the 6th inning. We're not going to go, I would imagine, maybe they change this up, but probably not going to go to Leahy, probably not going to go to Maton here. This is where they've got that bridge reliever, and this is where games have unraveled for them at times over the past few weeks.
So it's not just Ryan Fernandez on the road, then it's the bullpen on the road.
That's fair.
Slash your offense if you only score 1 run.
Yeah, this is where, and we'll see what the move is. There's still the commercial break. This is where I would have liked to see them decide to go with Matz, remains in the bullpen, and serves as their best high-leverage left-handed arm. And then if they do want to go to a 6-man, which was the plan originally even before the doubleheader today, or you get in a spot like this where there is a doubleheader, you call it McGreevy to make this spot start as the 6th guy. He does like the Tyler Lyons role, makes a start, and then he goes right back down to the minor leagues. And today in a doubleheader, I believe it doesn't count as one of the options for the 5 times that you can be optioned to the minor leagues. Correct. So this is where I would like to see them use Matz, because I don't trust JoJo. I don't trust John King. I feel much more comfortable if Matz were in this spot.
Yeah, that's the guy that you would like to see here, or Libby. But obviously, Liberator has earned his spot in the rotation. This 100%. Would otherwise be the spot, though, where you would bring him into the game. And because they don't have those guys available to them in the pin is where you're at. Ollie getting aggressive, going to Kyle Leahy in this spot right now. 2 on, 1 out, bottom of the 6th inning. Cardinals up 1-0 against the Cincinnati Reds. We'll update you as we get it here on BK and Ferrario. All right, Alex, let's get back to the Blues because they're back in action tonight. Game 5, just a huge, massive game. It's impossible to overstate this thing, man. It's the biggest game of the series thus far, and it will continue to be that as far as the series goes. The big storyline that is new to this series is the addition of Gabe Vilardi into the lineup for the Jets. He's a really good player. He drives offense at 5-on-5. He's an amazing power play threat for them. He is the guy that really drives the offense for them in that regard. Whether that's with a shot or his ability to set others up, especially Kyle Connor on the power play. When he was out there this year, they were the best power play in the NHL. And when he wasn't out there, they were like bottom 10 in the NHL on the power play, despite all of the other options that they still have on that unit. For you, Alex, where do you think we are going to feel his presence more? 5-on-5, where he's on the top line with Kyle Connor and Connor Scheifele, or on the power play?
I think it's going to be 5-on-5. I don't think you're going to see a lot of power plays because the Blues understand what's in front of them. Vilardi coming back, this power play hasn't had a lot of success, so be a little bit more disciplined. And again, this Blues team has been a very disciplined team all season. I feel like the impact can come from 5-on-5. Now, I emphasize the word can here. I don't expect him to be that type of threat that we were used to seeing early on. This guy has not played a hockey game in the NHL since March 23rd. And now you're not just returning to a regular season game, you're returning to a postseason game. And what Ryan told us earlier on in the show today, I expect the Blues to be throwing every check that they can against Gabe Vilardi. They're going to test to see how healthy you are. Now, Vilardi has been effective on the power play, but from the Four Nations break until he was injured, he's only scored 3 goals, and 2 of those 3 came on the power play. So even strength-wise, he's not putting up the goals like he was at the beginning of the season. But what he does and why he's so effective is he creates space for Kyle Connor. Think Dylan Holloway on the line with Shannon Kyrou. Dylan Holloway, although he was putting up a lot of points, Holloway is generating the offense so that Kyrou has time and space. That's where Kyle Connor becomes a massive, impactful player. But why I'm curious if it's going to have the same type of impact in this one is Jordan Binnington's gotten into Kyle Connor's head. And so if he's not scoring, then you're looking at the secondary scoring. But yeah, I think if we're going to see an impact from Vilardi, it's going to come at 5-on-5.
I think there's a decent case for that. I think the power play, though, is the spot that I'm going to be honing in on personally. And the reason why is because the Blues have been dominant on special teams so far in this series. Their power play's been very good. Their penalty kill has basically neutralized what the Jets have done on the power play. I think they're at like 16% so far in the postseason. They're a bottom 3 team in the playoffs on the power play. They're 13th out of the 16 teams. this changes things. Him returning to the lineup changes things for them. With Vilardi on the power play this season, whether it was Ehlers or Perfetti on the power play with him, either guy, they were getting about 55 to 60 shots per 60 minutes, so a shot per minute on the power play. And in terms of goals per 60, it was 14 with Perfetti on the ice and 12 with Ehlers on the ice. Much more time with Ehlers, much bigger sample size. But they've been fantastic regardless of who that final piece is. So, yes, they would be even better with Ehlers out there. Guy's just a better player than Perfetti is. But when Vilardi is on the ice, that is a huge advantage for them, and it puts that much more emphasis on Jordan Binnington. Because we've talked about this a million different times in the past, Alex. Your best penalty killer is who?
Goaltender.
And Jordan Binnington has to be that guy for you tonight.
Yep.
He's got to make some of those huge saves. He did it against Perfetti, where it was the goal. We didn't know if it was going to count or not at game 3, right? Midway through the game in that one, midway through the second period. And that felt like it effectively ended the opportunity for Winnipeg to come back. When they didn't have that, it was like, oh, well, if that's not going to go in, what are we supposed to do? Benner has to make a save like that at some point tonight.
Yeah, and this is where I'm going to be fascinated in the chess match that is Jim Montgomery and how he handles this, because Winnipeg is going to be trying to coax the Blues into taking those extra penalties. Specifically, they're going to be targeting Zach Bolduc. They're going to be targeting Texier. They're going to be targeting Neighbors to try and get them to take those retaliatory penalties. That's where Winnipeg's going to really try and coax them into it. But I would imagine the mindset is going to be, don't get into it. You get the extracurriculars, you get the post whistles, let Winnipeg get frustrated. You stick to the 5-on-5 game. Because typically when teams take penalties, it's because you're in front of the net and they're trying to clear the front of the net. And that's where you start to get the trips, the holds, the hooks, the cross checks. It's not the post whistles where they call the penalties. And that's where Winnipeg's going to try and draw the Blues in. I think they're a little bit more effective. And if you keep this at even strength, you're forcing Winnipeg to figure out how to stop your 5-on-5 offense.
He's Alex, this is T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Wanted to discuss one other move that Ollie has decided to go with here in the game against the Cincinnati Reds. By the way, Kyle Leahy was able to get out of that GM in the 6th inning. He gets out of it with a ground out, a fly out and a ground out, gets out of the inning. Cardinals still up 1-0. In the top of the 7th, Cardinals coming up with Alec Burleson now in the game. He's going up against a lefty in Taylor Rogers. I find this to be really interesting, T-Bone, because Rogers is a guy that does, Burleson, traditionally at least, would not profile well against. You have a right-handed bat off of the bench that plays first base, and you would imagine at least that this would be the exact spot that you would go to him for. And that is Lucan Baker. They have decided not to do that. It is the 7th inning. Maybe they're saving him for later, I suppose. What do you make of this decision here with Burleson?
I view this as, because Burley is in the field today, they aren't making this move. Because I think if you did not have, I think if Burley was the DH, I think they probably pinch hit. That would be my
But Baker can play first.
Yeah, but
That
I
is
think
his
this goes
spot.
to show you they just don't trust him at first base. That would be my read on the situation. I could be wrong, but we haven't seen him play the field at all this year, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure.
I don't think
He did last year, and I thought he was fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it goes to show you where they view Lucan Baker defensively, because I think if Burley was the DH, they would pinch it. But it also goes to show, like, as much as they talk about, hey, we want to avoid a lane, they got 3 lefties in the next, or 4 lefties of the next 5 batters. So they created this lane for Rogers, and they don't have another left-handed bat on the bench in this game today, so they don't have someone to kind of pinch hit for if a right-hander goes up against Lucan Baker.
To me, it's a reminder of what the Cardinals are doing. They have made this with their actions known. We're going with our guys, man. This is not the spot for Lucan Baker anymore. It's why Thomas Sajaci was sent down, because we're not pinch hitting. Like, it is what it is. Come on at us. Come take your best shot against our best guys, or who they claim to be their best guys, and we're going to go down with them. We're going to give them these opportunities. If it's a late game situation against a left-handed pitcher, let's see what you can do, Burleson. Let's find out. That's what these next couple of months are going to be for. But you can't then come back and say everything is about winning, because you can't have it both ways. Alec Burleson taking that at bat was probably not the thing that helps you win this game the most. Like, your winning odds of this game, I would imagine, decrease with Burleson being in that spot over Lucan Baker, or certainly over a guy like Thomas Sajaci, who you could have kept around for those exact scenarios if you wanted to. So you can't sell me on both of those things. It's okay if this season is truly just about the development. If that's where we're at and we're in the late April and we've already arrived there. I just don't want to be sold that it's something that it's not. Get your messaging on point, and if your messaging is there, we can all understand and buy into what this is. Have your words match your actions. It's been off far too long for the Cardinals. I think it's time for them to just go ahead and acknowledge what is clearly taking place right now.
April 9th was when he played first base. The only time Baker has, and he didn't play the full game at first base.
Yeah, and I think
it was a late addition. That was the extra innings game.
Yeah, and that's what makes what's so interesting. And like, I agree with what you just said there, BK. As long as your messaging is on point, I can get behind that.
Sure. I don't have a problem with them letting Burleson take that at bat necessarily. I just don't want them to then say that was our best chance to be able to win this game, because I don't believe that it is.
And I think Ollie's been doing a better job in post games of trying to
Agreed.
lay the breadcrumbs out there. Hey, look, we're just letting our guys be that guy. What I find interesting is how it suddenly changed. Because, I mean, you just brought up was that the Angels game?
That was the Pirates game.
Pirates game. Okay. So the Pirates and Angels, those two series, which I think were like back-to-back, they were pinch hitting. They were doing the best moves possible. And then all of a sudden it just quickly snap of the fingers like, by the way, hey, we're letting the guys be the guys that we're going with, which is okay, fine. But I find it weird how it switched halfway through April.
I feel like that happened like after the New York series. And I don't know if it was just an
waved the white flag
acknowledgement.
already.
Yeah, I don't know, but I feel like that's roughly when it took place. I could be wrong on that, but I'd have to go back through and find the exact dates on when they just legitimately stopped using pinch hitters, because they were pretty active, pretty aggressive with it early on, and I liked watching it. I thought it was really fun. But since then, they haven't really done it. And again, this is a perfectly fine way to go about it, given what the season is, given what we're expecting from them, and given what they're trying to accomplish. I just want to make sure that they're also acknowledging as much when they talk about it publicly. All right, coming up next, who are the Blues that still have a little bit more to give in this series? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario. All right, so we just got the answer to what we were talking about in the last segment, the pinch hit opportunities for the Cardinals. We'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here in about 10 minutes. So since the Mets series, the Cardinals have played 8 games. Alex, how many times do you think the Cardinals have pinch hit in a game in their last 8 games? Just sent a pinch hitter to the plate, regardless of situation.
0.
I'm going to go twice. When did Wynn get hurt? Because they did have to do that. I can't remember.
It was a couple of weeks ago now. It was more than 10 days ago.
One. Okay, so I'll say twice they've done it.
One time.
Right in the middle, the sweet spot.
One time.
I always fall for that BK game.
Yep, it was Alec Burleson against the Milwaukee Brewers. Cardinals were down 7-1 in that spot, and they sent Alec Burleson out to the plate against Nick Mears. But beyond that, they have not sent anybody else to the plate as a pinch hitter since the Mets series came to a close.
And if that was a 7-1 game, I mean, you'd have to look at that box. That could have just been hey, we're getting Contreras off his feet. So I don't know if you can really, it counts as a pinch hit. It's not in the context of, hey, this helps us, we believe, win the game.
A pinch hit for Lucan Baker in that spot.
Okay, so that would.
Cardinals were down 7-1. They decided, okay, let's give it our best shot here. Put Alec Burleson in the game. It didn't really change anything. The other thing is Baker's not a guy that they're trying to build around, so he doesn't even apply to this. If you're looking for guys that are like coming into the game for somebody that is a part of their core. Last time they did that was against the Mets with Lucan Baker coming into the game against the Mets when they were down 3-1 and he drew a walk. And he came in, I believe, I'd have to check on who it was for, but since the 20th of April, they have not had a single pinch hitter that came in for a big-time player that they're building
Checks
around.
out.
It's
And
changed.
I'm happy about
that. They're managing differently.
Yeah. Good for them. They're following up with what they told us. They're going to find answers out on all these guys.
Somebody on the text line said, maybe, just maybe, the options off of the bench are just poor. Maybe, but Lucan Baker's been really good against left-handed pitchers so far this year. Whether that's as a pinch hitter or as a starter against lefties, he's been very good in those situations, and certainly better than what we've seen from Alec Burleson against left-handed pitchers. If you are putting your best foot forward and playing the odds and all of those different things, your best option in that spot is Lucan Baker. Yeah. But if you're building for the future, your best spot is to find out what Alec Burleson is. So I'm fine with the way that they're managing. It is just a stark difference when they had 19 pitch hit opportunities up until April 20th this season, and they've had one since.
Yeah.
What happened on April 20th?
They lost to the Mets.
Okay. So
they were 9-13.
It literally was.
They got swept by the Mets.
Things changed when they lost in New York.
Okay, so I'm tinfoiling this. I'm not saying this is the conversation with the Cardinals, but did the Cardinals look at each other and say, what are we doing?
Maybe.
We're not trying to win. We're trying to find out who these guys are. Stop it.
I think that was
because they went to New York and they were 9-9. They were right at 500.
And
they leave
swept.
New York. They're 9-13, and they're looking at what's ahead, and they're like, okay, we've got 6 games coming up against Atlanta and Milwaukee. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real about where we're at right
And again, I'm not saying that's Ollie's mindset. I wonder if that's the front office's mindset of like, hey, let's start finding out.
Which is wild about the Milwaukee Atlanta because they went 3-3 in that stretch. Yeah. Like the season, typically they had those bad Aprils and they're in it now, 12-17.
Maybe they just started it though to see if they could get off to a hot start.
What's weird is like I would think that, especially as much as they talked, they had a little bit of mixed messaging. It wasn't too bad in the offseason of, hey, we want to go with youth movement. We also kind of want to get the fans back in April. Waving the white flag after getting swept by the Mets, and you're just 9-3. You can salvage that. And what we talked about is, hey, if you can just stabilize the bullpen, you might be able to be okay in April. And they said no.
The crazy part, though, is like, if that's all it took, then you weren't ever actually committed to the whole, like, we're trying to win thing.
100%.
Because you're 18 games into the season, and then you lose 4, and you're like, oh, we're done.
Yeah, but maybe they were like, hey, we're good for the 18. We'll come out, we'll win 13 of 18, and we'll go off to a hot start.
So if you weren't actually committed to that, why didn't you just start out this way?
Yeah.
That's what I would argue. But again, that's neither here nor there. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think this is a problem that they are managing this way. It is just crazy that we got 22 games into the regular season, and they completely shifted the way that they were going about this. All right, Alex, for the Blues tonight, Game 5 of this series against the Winnipeg Jets. We'll break this down even further with Chris Kerber here in just a little bit. I asked you the question before the show today. I'm curious your answer. Who are the Blues that still have more to give? Because you look up and down this lineup right now, it's like, man, I don't think Benner can give them anything more. Cam Fowler's been one of the best and most productive defensemen in the NHL so far in these playoffs. Booch was great in Game 3. Maybe you could get a little bit more there. But for you, when you think about it, who has more to give in this lineup? Who is it?
Bolduc. Bolduc's the answer. I would like to see what Booch did in Game 3 consistently, because that to me is a difference maker. But it's hard to ask to play one style that way for an entire series, especially when you're dinged up. But look, Bolduc has taken penalties in 3 of the 4 playoff games so far. He's got 1 point, which was an assist in game number 1, but he's also put together in 4 games a total of 5 shots on goal, and 3 of those 5 came in 1 game. If you're going to beat Winnipeg, you need secondary scoring. And they've done a really good job of finding that. We've seen the defense get involved. We've seen Jake Neighbors score. We've seen Sundqvist goal. You need somebody else on that third line. And I liked Texier's game. If Texier continues to play that way and builds more confidence, man, if you can get Bolduc to either be a threat on the power play or a threat at even strength, to me, you're in a really good position, because now your depth is just as good as Winnipeg. So Bolduc would be my answer.
I agree with that one. Just to go a little different. I would say, and I feel like they're in a tie.
Let's take mine.
Who are you going to say?
Philip Broberg, to me.
Okay, that's not who I was going to say.
Go for it.
I was going to go with kind of 2 guys, and it's the second line. It's Shen and Kyrou. They've got just 2 points so far in this series. Kyrou's got 2 goals, which were critical for them. But the second line feels like it's been very quiet in this series. And I would say you just would like to see a little bit more offensive production from Braden Shen and Jordan Kyrou. Shen's got a goal and an assist. Kyrou's got the 2 goals. If you get that second line going, now you really are winning that 5-on-5 battle with the Winnipeg Jets.
I like the way that they're using that line. I'm with you. They need to contribute a little bit more offensively. I feel like that line is kind of the cancel out the other team's second or third line, especially for how physical Shen has been. I'm with you, though, on the Neighbors thing. Neighbors is a net front presence, and you want him to do what he scored in Game 4 consistently for this team. I'm curious your thoughts on Broberg.
I don't think he's been bad at all. I think he's been really, really good. I just want to see him contribute more offensively.
Yeah.
I think there's more to get there. I think him as a one-man breakout, like him going out there and whether it's rush attempts, whatever, I think Broberg can capitalize on what this series is and how the Blues are playing right now. So whether that's goal-scoring production or more on the power play, whether that is just him getting more involved with assists, putting pucks on net, whatever it is, I think there's more there from Philip Broberg. He's been very good defensively for them. He shows up. You can feel his presence on the ice. I think there's going to be a moment tonight where you feel Philip Broberg's offensive game tonight. So he would be the one that I would pinpoint.
I really like that one, because he would kind of be my secondary answer with this, because the first 2 games, you didn't see any of that offense. Those last 2 games, he had 5 shots on goal and 9 shot attempts. Yep. It felt like something clicked for him, because if you go back and watch him in the Cup final last year with Edmonton, dude was taking shots from everywhere on the ice. That's where it felt like Jim Montgomery kind of sparked something with him.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joins us live from Winnipeg, where the Blues will take on the Jets in Game 5 tonight. He joins us next on BK and Ferrario.
Hey, listen, it's that time of year. Make sure you've got that air conditioner checked out. Chris Kerber with you here, coming at you from Winnipeg. I know the weather is wet and rainy back home, right? But you're going to be open and closing those windows a lot. What do? Well, you follow the instructions of the folks at Classic Air Care. The biggest thing you can do to keep that air conditioning unit running safely is you make sure that you change that air filter. Now, if you haven't called them up, call them up or get online at classicaircare.com. Get it scheduled where they come out and just do a maintenance check. Just make sure everything is running the way it should. That's the next best thing you can do to make sure that one of the most important pieces of equipment in your house stays safe and keeps your house comfortable. So go online, classicaircare.com. They've got a 4.8 Google rating. Find out all the great service that people are talking about, why you need to call them, what you can count on, what you can expect. And trust me, folks, they will make things right for you. So it's Classic Air Care. Book an appointment online at classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here. They Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Game 5 tonight between the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues as the series is tied at 2 games apiece. Well, pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and Joey Vitale. And Curbs will join us coming up next year on BK and Ferrario. And Cardinals in action as they are playing a doubleheader today against the Cincinnati Reds. They lead in Game 1, 1-0 in the top of the 8th inning. And then in Game 2 tonight, Steven Matz will be the starter for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Chris Kerber was up at morning skate for the Blues earlier today. They wrapped up about an hour ago, and now he's joining us here on BK and Ferrario via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Kerbs, we appreciate the time, man. I'm jacked up for Game 5 tonight in Winnipeg. How are you feeling going into this one?
Man, I'm excited to see what happens here. I think the biggest difference in this series, honestly, has been the matchups the home teams have been able to get. And so we're going to finally find out here if one team can break the mold and see if the Blues can get a road win.
Kerbs, does it feel tense around Winnipeg? I'm sure a lot of Jets fans are a little stressed out going into this one.
Nothing a couple of Bud Lights doesn't fix, Alex. You loosen up pretty good.
You're not wrong there.
When you lube up, right? Yeah. No.
It'll help with the pucker factor later tonight then maybe.
Yeah, that'll be there. No, look, I think the fans are into. The fans are excited. It's a series that's tied 2-2. Each home team has done the job. I don't know that one team is on the ropes at any point in this series right now. You know, the Blues have a lot to prove. They've lost 3 games in a row up here in Winnipeg when they face the Jets. So, you know, Winnipeg has a lot of confidence against St. Louis here. They got to keep that in mind. And, you know, but. You know, and as Jim Montgomery said, the momentum from one game to another doesn't carry over. But you know what, Ken, is trends. And the one trend that Jim Montgomery told me today that he really liked is how much in each game their ozone time seems to be getting bigger and better. And so if they can keep that trend going, then it's going to be hard on Winnipeg.
We're talking to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN. He'll be on the call for the Blues versus the Jets tonight from Winnipeg. Pre-game starts at 7:30, puck drop at 8:30, right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Kerbs, going into this one, the biggest change lineup-wise for the Jets is going to be Gabe Vilardi's return to that top line for them. He's also on their top power play. He was really the guy that made that work for most of the season. How big of a change or an adjustment do you think that'll be for the Blues with Vilardi's return to the lineup?
Well, I think Vilardi getting back in there is going to give a good little spark to the Winnipeg Jets. However, the guy hasn't played in about a month or so, right? And when you're trying to come back, and if you try to come back early from a shoulder injury, that's hard to do in the National Hockey League. So if you're the Blues, you got to get in, you got to finish checks, right? I got to think he's going to be a little shy to take some hits. So make sure if you go in the distance, you can do that. It'd be something to see that WTF line get a shift or two against them and see what happens, right? But they're getting one of their top goal scorers back. I mean, that's not a small addition that they're making. That's not a tweak. That's getting a really, really good player back. That shifts Alex Iafallo down. It shifts the lineup around. It pulls Gustafsson out of the lineup. It allows them to put Barron, who I think's had a good series, back on their fourth line. So the Blues are going to have to adjust for it. That is a different player with Vilardi on that right side than Iafallo. So it's a big adjustment, But again, going back to the ozone time thing, if the Blues can continue to force Winnipeg to have to defend in their own end, that's how you're going to keep guys like that off the board if you can.
Curbs, the adjustment for the Blues, of course, is Ryan Suter getting back in with Tyler Tucker. Jim Montgomery saying yesterday's day-to-day. We saw the impact of Tucker as soon as he got into the lineup, creating offense, putting pucks on net, physical in front of his own end. Do you feel like Ryan Suter can replicate what Tucker brought in those last couple of games?
Ryan Suter does not have to replicate what Tyler Tucker brought. Ryan Suter has to be Ryan Suter. And I think you're going to see that. This is a guy that's been really good for the Blues. The Blues are not in the playoffs this year without the season that Ryan Suter had from the minutes that he ate, especially when Broberg went out at the beginning of the year. So, you know what? It's one of those things where you take a guy that's got over 1,500 games, and you do 1,500 games there. You've got 140 playoff games under his belt. The experiences to the conference finals. This is a veteran that knows how to get it done. He doesn't play the physical game, right? Now, what Ryan Suter is going to have to do when you look at games 1 and 2, he is going to have to move that puck faster. Winnipeg, especially in home ice, is going to get in real quick on him. So the puck movement, frankly, from Ryan and the entire team tonight is going to have to be quick. It's going to have to be accurate to get this team breaking out of the zone clean.
Curbs, the last question that I had for you here today, we just talked about this in our last segment. Who is the Blue, in your opinion, that still has more to give in this series, that you feel like there's another level to his game? Alex mentioned, or we mentioned in the previous segment, Zach Bolduc. I mentioned, I think Philip Broberg maybe offensively still has a little bit more left in the tank than what we've seen thus far. Not to call him out by any stretch. I think he's been great, but I think there might even be another level to him there. Who is the guy for you that you think has a little bit more left to give?
Well, okay. Honestly, I think it's all of them. But I'm gonna rephrase your question. Instead of saying more to give, I'm gonna say unsung hero. And what I mean by that is, the matchups that Thomas and those guys are going to get. I think the kind of play that we saw from Pavel Buchnevich in games 3 and 4, you want to see that. Versus games 1 and 2, you want to see that obviously in game 5. I think that when you look at the matchups and the way that Scott O'Neill has had them, to me, you saw what happened when that second line broke through. So for me, kind of your unsung hero here, it's going to be somebody like Nick Leddy getting a goal or a big player and assist. It's going to be something like that third line, whether it be Texier, the way he was holding on to the puck, or I like the way you just talked about Bolduc. I do believe guys like I want to be careful with the phrase kind of more to give, because it almost seems like some guys are reserved, and I don't feel that that's the case.
Untapped potential maybe is a better way for me to frame it then.
Yeah, or as Jim Montgomery said, the next level, like you got to continue to get better as a series. And this best of 7 is now a best of 3, right? Okay, so what gets better? Are you 2 plays better in the offensive zone if you're Zach Bolduc holding on to the puck? And that could be the difference in a win, right? So I think that's the next level. So for me, more to give for the Blues right now would be on the road in the offensive zone. Finding that extra jam to really pin Winnipeg in is going to be a key to tonight.
He's Chris Kerber. He'll be on the call tonight for the Blues versus the Winnipeg Jets. Game 5, as we mentioned earlier today. The team that goes up 3-2 in a series after it was tied at 2. They go on to win 41 of the last 48 series that were in this situation. A critical game tonight for the Blues on the road in Winnipeg. Chris Kerber will be on the call. You'll hear that all right here on 101 ESPN pregame starting at 7:30. Kerbs, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the hell out of that game tonight. Hopefully we'll talk with you again next week talking about the Blues potentially advancing to the second round of the playoffs.
Take a nap, fellas. It'll be a late one. Have a good one.
Though.
I don't
It'll
get a
be
nap.
all worth
I'll
it.
just load up on coffee. It's fine. Same thing.
Appreciate it. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. All right, Alex.
Nap
We
would
got
be
one
great.
segment left in us.
Just one?
We got one segment left.
Okay.
We're going to break down the Cardinals, where they're at in this game. Just had a huge inning out of JoJo Romero. They're up 1-0 heading into the 9th. I'm sure nothing heartbreaking will happen there.
No, they're going to go to the closer here.
They will.
He's
Or
unavailable
Phil
tonight, though,
Maton.
right?
Yeah, probably. If they do that there. That's why I think they were trying to save one of Maton or Helsley. So we'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. We will also give our final thoughts on the Blues versus the Jets, Game 5 tonight. And we'll do that next in the Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
I thought earlier today we had a fantastic interview with a guy from Winnipeg who does NHL breakdowns. He's the highest level of certification that you can get from Hockey Canada. He also hosts the Hot Garbage Sports podcast. It's over there on YouTube. Check that out over there. His name is Ryan Didoshak, and he was amazing breaking down exactly what he's anticipating from game number 5 and how we got here in the first 4 games of the season. So if you missed that conversation, I don't think you will hear a better breakdown of this series anywhere than what we were able to get from Ryan Didoshak earlier today on the show. So check that out. You could also see our interview over there with Chris Kerber as well. And you can join Anthony Stalter and the 101 ESPN Street Team on Friday night for Game 6. It's a watch party at Cafe Telegraph. That is Friday at Cafe Telegraph. It is located 2650 Telegraph Road in South County, Alex's country down
my neck
there.
of the woods.
You can learn more about that at 101ESPN.com.
Why do you got to call it my country, you know?
It's God's country. It's Alex's
It is
country.
God's country. Jefferson County, God's country.
Figured you'd be okay with it either direction.
I don't even think South County is Jefferson County, but it's the same thing.
All right, Alex, let's give our final thoughts on this one. Game 5 tonight. I've mentioned it a number of times. You guys probably know this, but if you go up 3-2 in a series, it's a pretty big deal. The team that goes up 3-2 in the best of 7 series since 2021, so over the last 4 postseasons, 41 of the 48 went on to win the series. If you win tonight, you have like an 87% chance to win the series. So, Alex, what are you looking for in this one?
I'm looking to see who has the momentum coming out of the gate. This isn't about who gets off to a fast start. This, to me, is about who scores first. Because if the Blues score first, all of the pressure is put on Winnipeg, and you're going to see them have to come from behind, which they've done already this season. But then who scores that second goal? Because the first team that gets a multi-goal lead, I think, crumbles in this series. And it's also going to be Binnington and Hellebuck. Like, that's what the narrative of this series was going into it, and it's going to be until one team is eliminated. Binnington has been the better goalie in this series from start to finish. He's been making the saves that Connor Hellebuck has not been making. And as Connor told us yesterday, he has probably studied more goaltending than anybody else in the world. And we'll see if he can make the adjustments in this series.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be that race to that first goal. See if you can get that momentum and really silence that building, because that place is going to be rocking in Winnipeg. It's a matter of, can you really make the fans and honestly the team? I mean, the Jets will feel it for sure if you get up 1-0. The other thing I'll be curious to see, I agree, we talked earlier, where does it impact the Jets more with Vilardi's return, 5-on-5 or their power play? I think it helps them more on the power play because that's been a significant advantage for the St. Louis Blues. Can you continue to keep their power play quiet? Because if you do, you've been with the better team the last 2 games at 5-on-5.
The Vilardi thing is the number one storyline to me. I just want to see what it looks like against the Blues. Power play, 5-on-5. The story thus far has been about like game 1 and 2. Top line players for the Jets outplayed the top line players for the Blues. Games 3 and 4, top line players for the Blues outplayed the top line players for the Jets. What's that look like now when the top lines have changed? Mm-hmm. It is now a new group of players that's going to be out there on the ice together for the Jets. This is the line that was among the best in all of hockey this year. So with Vilardi back on the ice, I want to see what it looks like for the Blues.
I will say, too, BK, that line has been one of the best. We talked about this yesterday. They've been really good in the offensive zone, but when they've been good in the offensive zone, they have given up a lot of scoring chances on the defensive side. And I wonder if they're going to try and be overly aggressive early on. And sometimes that's a double-edged sword because you can be dangerous offensively, but, man, when you're overly aggressive, that could add to an odd-man rush, and you've got a shaky goalie in between the pipes.
Ryan Didoshak basically told that to us earlier today. He said, listen, this is a team that at times plays a little bit of that East-West hockey. And with Vilardi back into the lineup, who can play a little bit more of that East-West game, we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, we'll see what that looks like for them. All right, so that is what we're anticipating from the game tonight. Alex, on the Cardinals side of things, they have opened this thing up. It started out really with a Victor Scott home run, a 3-run shot by him. By the way, his average now up to 270, on-base percentage 340. He's having a really good season.
They should have sent him down to Memphis at the start.
10 steals on 10 attempts so far this season. First guy to do that for the Cardinals, a 100% success rate on 10 or more stolen bases before the month of May. in 35 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a hell of a start to the season for Victor Scott. Lars Nootbaar just added another home run as well. They're up 5-0 in the top of the 9th inning now, boring it on in Cincinnati. Looks like they are expected to take game 1 of this series. The other benefit of this, now you don't have to bring in Maton or Helsley into the bottom of the 9th inning. So that allows both to be available for you later on today. Just a massive 9th inning for the Cardinals here. Final predictions. Blues versus the Jets.
I thought you were talking
tonight.
the Cardinals. 5-0. That's my prediction.
I'm 5-1. They'll give up one tonight.
Okay, touche.
Game 5. What happens?
People will not like this answer. 2-1 double overtime Blues win.
Oh, yeah, I really don't like
Double
that.
overtime?
I think this is going to be
I don't
a
wanna be
tight
up that
hockey
late.
game. Me neither, man.
Oh,
I got to do another hour after that.
Dude, you just sleep in the office.
Oh,
back
I
there
will
if
at that
happens.
point. I will at that point. I do think this is maybe not double overtime. I think this goes to OT, potentially double OT, and I think this is a 1-goal game. I do think 2-1 final score, and I think the Blues win.
I think Blues win 4-1.
God, that would be nice.
Wow. Can you imagine?
Hell, I don't think
that
Hellebuck-
Two
fan
empty
base would
netters or
be-
one empty netter? Or no empty netters?
I was going no empty netters. I don't think
Wow.
Hellebuck gets the job
Damn, you
done.
think?
I don't know if he gets pulled.
I was
but
going to say, does he get pulled?
I don't think so. I think you got to stick with him. But I think he continues to be shaky. And I think this is, I mean, we've talked about this is a big game. You know who shows up for big games? This guy named Jordan Bennington.
Yeah, big
He's
game
not
dinner.
nervous.
You ready, Alex?
Oh, he's going to say
Say
Jets.
it. Say it.
If I start to hear Jets, I'm turning that mic off.
Jets, Jets.
I'm going to give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll on May 13th here in
jerk.
just a moment.
Oh, my
get
prediction for the
texter
Cardinals
number
game.
101 at 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you were texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, you are getting the pair of tickets to see Post Malone and Jelly Roll on May 13th. Earlier today, Tanner was big mad. I mean, big mad about a certain somebody. Who is that person that he was mad at? I guess what was the situation that he was mad about is maybe the better way for me to frame that question. If you have the correct answer to that question and your texter number 101, you are getting the pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. We're not acknowledging that on the air right now. We'll do that here in just a little bit.
Just going to say, sorry, Ollie.
I'm going to take the Jets.
Yeah, you are.
3-2. They win on home ice. Comes back here to St. Louis, and I think the Blues will force a deciding Game 7. But Jets win 3-2 tonight, and I think Gabe Vilardi has a goal and an assist.
Our producer, Grant Francis, was not happy with my prediction.
No.
Sorry, Grant.
All right, Alex.
He used a lot of foul language in the
I'm
text to
looking
me.
forward to hearing Alex tonight on the pregame show. That begins right here on 101 ESPN at 7:30. You can also hear Alex's thoughts on the Last Minute Blues podcast. Be sure to download that, subscribe to it. They do unbelievable work over there. They're grinding like crazy throughout the Blues playoff run. So be sure to check that out. You can see it on YouTube as well. T-Bone and myself, we're going over to record the Redbird Report here in just a little bit. So if you want some Cardinals breakdown, I think we'll probably talk a little bit about the decision to put somebody in the 2-hole. We'll talk about that
this episode.
coming up in the Redbird Report. Excited to talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m.
You won't be here.
Fastlane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.